meteorologist. Hey there, Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon alongside our Gabe Maynard and Caleb Edelblut, tracking a few strong thunderstorms. No severe thunderstorms officially at this point, but we've been watching one. It's been kind of going along an outflow boundary here. Could have some damaging winds with it. The southern portion of Lee County in particular, where we're concentrating on that potential. Looking at the latest again on the wind mode here on a Mama Justice Doppler radar, pretty much moving right into the Shannon area now. All this kind of bright green that you see here, that is that strong wind again moving into Shannon pretty much as we speak. Now listen, this is not extreme per se. We do have some of the brighter greens there, 30, 40 mile per hour winds on a pretty consistent basis with this. Of course, we're also looking a little bit above the surface, so not impossible. It's a little stronger farther down, but certainly could be some strong wind gusts. Let's see the movement on this. I'll go and pull off that lightning here for just a moment so you can see that. Make this a 30-minute loop so you get an idea. Again, from pretty much right in the Pontotoc area, now tracking there to Shannon over that period of time. So we kind of measure that off over that period of time there from Shannon, and we'll walk it back. We're looking at right around 30 miles per hour because we're taking that 15 times 2 there. It's about 30 miles per hour for what are, again, maybe not severe winds, but could be some gusty winds causing some sporadic wind damage with them. So that's really kind of the concern. It's the maybe on this as opposed to the for sure going to happen. We'll make a 5-mile width there. So we're looking at Shannon again, 3:15. Current time comes in at about 3:12. So that'd be middle part of Shannon there, pretty close to, again, the 45 interchange there in Shannon. We're looking at Nettleton about 3:26. Toward the Central Grove community at about 3:34, Wren at 3:38. As again, Mama Justice Doppler radar showing some strong wind with this as it kind of tracks through some of those locations there. As far as hail is concerned, not really any significant hail threat out there, though the hail potential has come up on this maybe a little bit. Closer inspection again shows when we start being concerned with hail, we expect this to be up there. We're starting to get in the darker colors. That's not the case with this. So unlikely at this point here, I think, to be producing damaging hail with it, but certainly something that we'll continue to have to watch here. Strong winds have been kind of the story out of these storms, gusty winds. I want to be crystal clear. We do not expect an outbreak of severe weather today. But again, sporadic wind damage remains possible out of some of these. You know, these storms we have over here closer to Hamilton, Alabama, were a lot heavier, or were heavier up there toward Tishomingo County just a little bit ago as well. And that has now prompted the severe thunderstorm warning for far eastern Marion County in effect until 4 p.m. there. Really, it's the portion that's just now exiting Marion County. I'd show there at the intersection of Walker, Winston, and Marion County, pretty much right where that white line is, where the strongest wind gusts could occur. So again, tracking right along 22. So if you know somebody who might be moving along 22, they are going to be driving that direction, might give them a heads up just to kind of let them know, hey, we got something that is going on here. As we check out our camera in the Tupelo area, give me a moment here. This one should pop up unless, well, I'm gonna have to work on something here behind the scenes in a second to get that up and going. We'll pop it up a different way here. So here we are, camera in Tupelo, looking, and what we have out there, again, kind of bounce it around with the pretty gusty winds. Not a severe thunderstorm at this point in time, but still obviously with fairly windy conditions. Looking kind of toward the south and west out of our Mitchell, Cunningham, and Bowling camera there. And again, it's just a lot of heavy rainfall. Kind of pan this over to the left a little bit more. Again, that's kind of looking into some of the light sort of ahead of it. So the strongest portion here is pretty much dead south on this camera. And again, it just looks like it's dark because it's just mainly heavy rainfall, but the heavy rain can be associated with some strong gusty winds, and so certainly remains a possibility there. I'm going to swing this back around toward the north and west, kind of look back more into the Tupelo area. You'll notice it does get a little lighter when we look back up that direction there. Certainly watching things closely. But again, at this point in time, a non-severe thunderstorm there. We go back upstream to Pontotoc, and this kind of move through Pontotoc, and that is starting to clear out a bit more at this point in time. Our camera there, again, at this point, we'll swing this around toward the south and east, make sure we're kind of pointed directly back into that there. And as we swing it around again, that's the heavier rainfall with that storm there in the Pontotoc area. So not officially a severe thunderstorm when it moved through, but I mean, even this portion that's right there in Pontotoc could still have some gusty winds with it as it pushes toward the south and east. Our meteorologist Gabe Maynor and Caleb Edelblut, of course, in our downtown Tupelo studios, monitoring what you guys are sending in. I know we've got a few pictures in. They're going to try to get some of those up for you behind the scenes here in a couple of minutes. But we'll slide down toward Amory, which would be ahead of this thunderstorm. And again, showing those dark gray clouds as the storm gets a little closer. We'll swing our Amory camera here back around, make sure we're pointing directly to the north and west. Into that there. So that's the direction the storm, of course, is going to be coming from as it moves in that general direction over the next little bit here. Non-severe, but that could maybe have some hail in that dark blue that's getting a little closer. 95 degrees feels like 104, so we do have plenty of fuel out there for thunderstorms to end up working off of, and certainly that has been the case to this point here. Let's go ahead and reset here for a moment, and we'll go a little wider. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. You're watching Mississippi Live. Again, we're 24/7 streaming service out of the Tupelo, Mississippi area. Watching a few thunderstorms. Got one back toward Carroll County we're looking at as well. Throwing the lightning back on Mama Justice Doppler radar. Not a ton of strikes out of this at this point in time. Hold on. Black screen behind me. Well, that's not good. Let me figure this out. Has it been black screen behind me the whole time there, Gabe? Okay. Appreciate that. I'll figure out what it's doing there. I do see that. Has it been most of the time I was looking at the sky cams? Was it black the whole time I was looking at the sky cams? Hold on. I need to hear you real quick. So let's
just Amory.
Talk to me, Gabe.
Tupelo was just fine, but Amory is when it started going out.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate that. I'm going to toss to you for just a second here. Let's look at some of those pictures. I know we haven't got a ton of them, but we have gotten a few in, both from the North Mississippi Storm Chasers and some folks at home, right?
Yeah, so working to pull up the storm chaser pictures here in just a moment, but at least our weather watchers out there in the field doing a great job of showing off your SLCs, as we like to put it, scary looking clouds, because as of the 3 o'clock hour here in North Mississippi, have not seen any of those severe thunderstorms, but what you're getting with this is a little bit of those gusty winds you can see with the chop there on the waterway, and the heavy rainfall there in the distance. This is what a lot of folks are seeing across the region, including what looks to be, well, right here is a little bit of a disorganized shelf. It was a pretty apparent shelf moving across the Tennessee state line. We'll work with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers to pull that up in just a moment. Some of those dark clouds there in the distance, and you can see that blowing the grass a little bit there, but these are not going to be overly gusty, overly severe winds by any stretch, but nonetheless, something to monitor as we kind of enter into the peak time frame of the day. You know, mid-afternoon is where we saw those storms really start to flare up, and that will carry over into the evening hours as well. And here's a look in Ecru, in an area that saw damage on Thursday last week, almost a week ago on the dot. But this is over there in Ecru at the Ashley Furniture Plant where they had roof damage, and you can see those dark clouds moving in the distance. And over in Ecru, and a lot of folks seeing these dark clouds move in might have been a little bit scared, a little bit hesitant. Luckily, reports have not been as abundant as last week. In fact, we've yet to get any confirmed reports of damage over there in Pontotoc County. So we're keeping eyes on that, Matt, but of course we're hopeful that those reports remain zero. But as we head into the afternoon, these storms really start firing off more and more.
Absolutely. As we continue monitoring again, one severe thunderstorm and a few others that could be heavy from time to time. Appreciate our meteorologist Gabe Maynor in our downtown Tupelo studios. Current time is now 3:18. You're watching Mississippi Live. Again, we're a 24/7 streaming service based out of the Tupelo, Mississippi area, and we're looking here near Lebanon, Mississippi, and Acona there, north of Lexington. Maybe just the littlest bit of hail. We don't have a lot of lightning out of this. Most indications would be then in that scenario that's probably not producing a whole lot of lightning. We'll make this a 1-hour loop here to show again it's not moving very quickly, and so while severe weather is not impossible, I'd say 18 miles per hour remains the peak there. We show the Bowling Green community about 331 if it kind of holds together for you. We'll clear that back out. Let's slide up northward here and get kind of the overall assessment. We kind of started this coverage because of two areas. One we're watching in Marion County, another one that we're watching there in southern Lee County. We talked about Marion County a minute ago with that severe thunderstorm warning. We'll be right back in on that here in just a moment. Look at southern Lee County near Leotis and Shannon. This one, quite a few lightning strikes out of this as well, so obviously disruptive in that regard. And checking the wind mode here, our kind of wind from Shannon all the way down there toward Pine Grove and Leotis, that whole kind of section there, right along 45 alternate where it is at this point, about 40, maybe 45 mile per hour winds. Again, I'm not convinced that this for sure is producing severe weather, but some wind damage wouldn't be shocking at all. But maybe it's just small tree branches, some sporadic power outages, something, of course, Gabe and Caleb are watching. Now, this storm is moving a little bit faster, closer to 30 miles per hour, so we'll track that again toward Amory there. Okolona, we're looking at you for pretty much 322 right now. Again, closer to Nettleton at 328. Wren by around 333. The Tranquil Community 338. Amory 348. A lot of different subdivisions again around the Amory area with that there as it eventually heads toward Glenwood there at about 351. I don't see Becker in that list, so let's go ahead and kind of slice off some of those initial locations there so that we can get that toward the top. There we go. We'll start with Glenwood. Make that our first in the list. And there we go. Becker about 352 for you. Looking at the Carroll subdivision there by around 352. Hatley, we're at 357. Quincy 405. And around Greenwood Springs by about 413. This is some gusty winds. Again, not convinced 100% that this is severe weather. We'll check and see if this camera actually comes up this time as we launch our one of our cameras here behind the scenes. Well, I'm going to have to, there we go. Okay, so this is our camera there in the Amory area right now. Again, showing up with all of the, give me a moment, I need that to go back to there. Perfect. Okay. So you can kind of see, again, the darker blue as we're looking into that storm, again, still a little ways off to the north and west, but it won't be long. Again, if we were thinking Amory, within about the next 20 minutes or so, we're into town there in the Amory area. So I think the time we had on that was about 3:48, so maybe just a little over 20 minutes based on where it's moving in. Couple of wind gusts could be strong to severe. And Gabe, again, that probably remains our main impact we see on this if we see some gusty, strong winds. And I know you and Caleb have been looking power outages as well, right?
Yeah, and he's working to pull that up. We're getting a large number coming out of Union County, so we'll talk to him in just a moment. But whenever we're talking about these gusty winds, that's where we start to enter the severe weather factors. But look at the amount of lightning that we're talking about as well. I mean, we're up to 725 just on that cluster in Pontotoc, Lee, and now Chickasaw County. That's 700 opportunities to knock out your power. And unfortunately, that is starting to climb here momentarily. That outflow boundary from our severe storm in Marion County kind of feeding into this batch of thunderstorms there in Pontotoc County. So this severe storm is sparking a lot of our activity even in North Mississippi. But that severe thunderstorm warning in Marion County, that continues until 4 o'clock and even extends more into Walker County. So we're just on the outskirts of Marion County for folks traveling along I-22. I always say right there in Hamilton, Alabama. It seems to always be the sweet spot for severe weather to take place, Matt. I remember driving it from back home all the way here to Tupelo, and it seems like every time we drive through Hamilton, there's a severe storm. And in this case, once again, that's what we're dealing with.
Absolutely is. Let's go and check out some of the lightning issues and honestly the power issues that we've had with this with our meteorologist Caleb Edelblut, kind of watching some of those numbers there. He's got the latest on that situation.
Yeah, so Pontotoc and Union County are probably the two counties being affected the most right now. You can see Union, the only county as of right now kind of coming in with some color, which is always unfortunate with our power outages. With our Pontotoc EPA, we're starting to talk about kind of isolated outages, 3 up there in the northern side of the county, 5 within the city, 2 right along the county line, and then another outage area of 18. But I will say we're seeing a significant number of reports kind of within Union and Lafayette County, dealing with 604 all within that outage area. We're talking about almost close to 50 in the northwestern portion of Union County, getting just south of Hickory Flat. So starting to see those power outages return. I did also want to take a look at Tombigbee as we're dealing with those storms kind of approaching Tupelo, affecting you guys out here in Lee County, moving closer towards Itawamba. Again, again, very isolated at this moment in time, and that's what we're going to continue to deal with. Hopefully these winds just really don't continue to add on to these outages, but this is something that we're going to expect to kind of climb, unfortunately, throughout the next few hours as these storms begin to fire on up, Matt.
And let's be clear, we do not expect an outbreak of severe weather, but spotty, damaging wind, I think, certainly is a possibility. And that's sometimes all it takes is spotty, damaging wind to knock out the power. Certainly, that is what the expectation is at this point. Current time is 3:24, and we're showing, again, our line of storm stretching from around the Union community and Shiloh closer to Nettleton and Okolona there. Gabe's going to track some of the communities involved in this, looking ahead as this line is showing up there from the chroma key. And Gabe, again, they've gone ahead and gone with a severe thunderstorm warning. So we'll stick with it for a second. We'll actually do another push, and we'll do one of those clips where we snip it and push it as well. And I'm going to go ahead and let Digital Matt Lawpon take this one here for just a moment as we pop up our severe warning and let everyone know. Hello?
This is Mississippi Live Weather Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. The National Weather Service has issued a severe thunderstorm warning for your location for a storm capable of producing damaging winds or large hail. We recommend seeking shelter in a sturdy building and staying away from windows. Repeating, you are in the path of a severe thunderstorm. This message comes from Weather Call Next Gen.
If you'd like to hear this message again, please press 1. Otherwise,
So why do I point that out? Did you see how fast it was? Almost instantaneous. In fact, I knew as soon as my phone started ringing, I was like, oh, we're going to have a warning. It hits that fast. That's the point of weather call. And we, by the way, just got an alert here from the folks, on the Mississippi Live app. That's also working. I don't know why weather call has an echo. We're gonna fix that. I'm gonna fix that here in a minute. Gabe, you're gonna take this to Chroma, and I'm gonna finally fix that once and for all. Gabe, go on the track.
Yes, Matt, you're exactly right. Tracking this out, it's important that we stay aware. And unfortunately, it's happening at a time where folks are on that commute home from school. Buses are going. So if we're in the path of this storm, especially with high-profile vehicles like a bus, I think it would be worth a couple minutes as this storm does move on through. 3:26 is the time we're at. The severe thunderstorm warnings in effect until 4:15. As we time this out, saw a few folks asking about specifically Monroe County. Well, Wren, we're 332 off there towards Bigby 340. Amory mentioning you 346. Wildwood 347. Glenwood by 348. Becker Community 349. And off there towards Parkview about 348. One thing I want to do real quick is as we continue our coverage is look out of our Amory camera. And I believe we'll have a view out of Amory and Smithville as long as those are both still online. Let me make sure. Yes, so as we're looking out of Amory, this is looking north and west into this storm. So you don't get that clear and defined shelf. So those winds happening behind some heavy rainfall. Well, there's your disorganized shelf right there along the leading edge. But as we're looking into this storm, some heavy rainfall, blinding rainfall as it moves across 45. And there's your cloud base right there. Again, we're not expecting tornadoes out of this, but those gusty winds can still be impactful. And those winds have continued to climb over those past couple of scans. So we're going to continue to monitor this camera in particular as it looks towards the north and west into that storm as it moves further into Monroe County. Another way we're able to see that is out of Smithville. Let me see if Smithville is online. I believe it is. It does look like it's updating, or at least you're getting a little bit of a shake there from the wind. But this is looking more north. So your storms are developing there on the west side of the camera. So we would need to point this a little bit more towards the west. Caleb, if you want to work on that behind the scenes, kind of moving that camera over a little bit, because this is an area where I believe those storms are about to move on through. So we'll need to track that out here in just a moment. But out of Smithville, seeing those dark clouds for sure, and that's expected to continue to intensify there into northwestern Monroe County. Now, as we're looking at the current scan, this is over the Nettleton area, at least not far away from it, Matt, moving further into Monroe County, maybe even clipping parts of southwest Itawamba. Either way, some communities about to be dealing with a pretty hefty thunderstorm.
Exactly. And we have not had, just checking with the folks there at the Weather Service, not a ton of reports coming in on this, but the expectation is, that will cause damage, and that's kind of the threshold, I think, spotty wind damage. And so that's why, of course, you want to be getting to as good a place as you can on that as well.
Well, and reports come after the fact too. So, you don't get those reports until after the storm has moved on through. So that's why we want to prepare now. So that way those reports are minimal and we're not talking about any injuries potentially as we deal with this thunderstorm.
Okay, so let's get in close. Let's do some close-in tracking on this, Gabe, and then I'm going to fix something here behind the scenes.
Sounds good. So let's bring it back here to our Mama Justice Doppler radar, and we're tracking out these brighter greens that are showing up, which looking at the latest scan there, just looking at some of those brighter returns, it's still about 30 to 40 miles an hour aloft, but as this mixes down towards the surface, we can get winds anywhere from 50 to 60 miles an hour. So getting a little bit closer on that track, which in fact, let me make sure I have the wind speed right on this. So I think it'll be worth at least a couple of seconds to go back here and make sure we have that correct. So as it moved through Pontotoc, we got that picture in Ecker a little bit earlier on, looking relative to those. I've 6 miles an hour there. I think it's worthwhile to go ahead and put 30, and let me put it back on wind so we can get the right wind speeds on this. So as we take it along that leading edge and move it towards the Bigby area right along Highway 6 into Amory, and we're going to take it at about 30. Honestly, let's just do 27, right around that same speed we just tracked a moment ago. And we're seeing parts of the New Wren and Wren area, 331, 333, Tranquil, 335 or 336, Bigby, 336 as well. And looking towards Amory 343 that we just saw on the camera a moment ago. So for anyone that's in downtown Amory, I know there's plenty to do out there. I want to make sure that we get inside before these storms do move into the area, because those gusty winds, hey, I can tell you, I've been in these gusty storms before. They're not something to mess around with, and they can still be impactful for folks just walking along on their evening commute. Towards the Hedgemore community, 344, Highland Park around that same time frame, Wildwood 344, East Haven 346, Parkview 346, and Longview by about 347. As we put on those reports, not seeing any out of this storm just yet, but like we just talked about, some of those reports, or a lot of those reports, coming after the fact once the storm has moved on through. But something we're able to detect is our power outages. I know our meteorologist Caleb Edelblue is pulling up Tom Bigby EPA to see some of those outages, as well as looking through the entire Monroe County area for some of that potential. But winds still up around 40, 50, maybe even up to 60 miles an hour. I do want to take a look here on our Mama Justice Doppler radar and track the conditions. What is feeding into this storm? And an interesting factor over those last couple of minutes, I'm going to put it on a 30-minute loop here, is look at this boundary. So we see this green line that's moving through. That's not a wall of rain that's moving into the area. That's actually what we call some rain-cooled air, puts out one of these quasi-cold fronts is what we call it, but also known as the outflow boundary. And that's that lifting mechanism. So as it's moving into this storm, it allows some lift to happen. And that's where this storm has intensified those last couple of scans and potentially becoming severe. And it's not just that outflow, Matt. You also have an outflow forming from this storm that's allowing for additional development down towards Houston. So I believe this is the storm that's going to be the seed to grow a few more storms down the line through the evening.
And the hope is that even though it's a seed, not every seed grows into a giant oak tree. Sometimes it's just a little sapling, and so that's the hope here, but maybe not the reality. We will see. Again, if you have reports to send that, use the Mississippi Live app. Probably the easiest way to do that. iOS, Android devices. I'm watching your pictures coming in behind the scenes here. National Weather Service there in Memphis can see those as they come in as well as we go along. We're going to try a couple cameras here. Gabe, what you don't know, neither you and Caleb knows, I designed something overnight where I can run the camera where it's looking behind the scenes, but I had to fix something a moment ago from that as well. So let's see here from Smithville, and we'll pan our camera here. Let's go back toward the west, and that should flop me back over there here in just a second. There we go. And so we're kind of looking into the heart of whatever that is producing there. As all my alerts are saying, hey, did you know there's a severe thunderstorm warning going on? Yeah, I did actually. I'm going to tilt this down just a little bit here. But yeah, that's kind of looking toward that. This is looking toward that sort of outflow boundary, that kind of shelf cloud there coming into the Smithville area as well. So 77, rain cooled at the nearest thermometer there, but obviously it's fairly humid right probably at that site. We'll slide down toward Aberdeen. Again, our camera in Aberdeen, folks in Aberdeen are under this severe thunderstorm warning as well, looking from a slightly farther distance away. Monroe County under that severe thunderstorm warning in effect there until 4:15. Current time is 4:33. I'll pan this, and we're generally, I think, looking toward the north with this. Give me a moment here to lock that in here for a moment, and then we'll, I think, kind of perhaps pan that a little bit to the left. See if my button here is gonna. There we go. There we are. I think that's a good shot there. So just kind of looking back and forth at that, you can see the low-hanging stuff as that storm moves in. going to certainly have some gusty winds as it does. So, and I think some of those wind gusts could be possibly up to around 60 miles per hour. We'll reset things here for a moment as we clear that off and check out, again, for Aberdeen, this is still, what, about 12, 13 miles away. And based on about the 30 miles per hour this is going, that's still about 20 minutes for you. Obviously, Amory, it's pretty much right on your doorstep now. Going back to that wind mode, which is kind of how we've sort of assessed this, does not look like it's necessarily 70 mile per hour winds, but I think sporadic 60, especially right along Highway 6, where I think it's most likely we could be seeing some of that right now traveling again through Nettleton or just a little past Nettleton there, obviously, toward really kind of that cutoff there between 45 and along 278 there into the Amory area. Again, looking behind the scenes, I don't see a lot of power outages coming in on this yet, but certainly that will increase. The northern part of this, where it's probably the most intense, at about 30 miles per hour, that's the direction this is going to continue feeding directly into this. So I'll pop our camera list down there for a moment. But you can see, again, Amory 343 is the time, and that's pretty much the way it's been kind of timing out lately when we're sort of looking at this here. I see Caleb and Gabe both there in the Weather Center looking at what might be the headline to this point here. And I think that is, again, some of the lightning that we have seen. That could be a big part of what's caused some power disruption so far as well, right?
Yes, unfortunately, that will be an issue. And technically, I guess that is technically a good thing because we're not talking about too many wind reports. But unfortunately, energetic and disruptive storms continue to rumble through North Mississippi. This is a great shot of a lightning bolt. And I'll make sure to give photo creds. This was sent in from downtown Tupelo by Hannah. So dealing with that here in Lee County.
Might be why our power flickered too.
Our power was flickering, so that may be a reason why. But I will say, honestly, with these power outages, we're not talking about any blue out there in Union County. So local EPA is already on top of it, trying to get you guys restored very, very quickly. But if we continue to kind of thumb through all our tabs of different EPAs, still very isolated here in Pontotoc County. I'd say our most noticeable one is this teal coverage area around 18 in the southeastern portion of the county. Lafayette and Union County still dealing with around 604 kind of along the county line on both sides. So that's probably our most noticeable area of outages being reported, but still very isolated everywhere else, especially for Lee and Itawamba and Fort County. We're not seeing any reports at this moment in time as that severe thunderstorm warning continues to dig further in. So good news so far with power outages. We're not seeing those continue to skyrocket as of this moment.
Okay, appreciate that. Our meteorologist Caleb Edelblut, again, our downtown Tupelo studios, bringing in our Emily Leonard. Again, you have some video that's come in from viewers here.
Nitpick me.
You're a year in now.
Yep.
So you have a crutch word, and I noticed it on Saturday.
Driving through any of this, you can see lots of cars pulled off to the side. They've got their hazards on as that rain is pouring down. Again, this is Highway 6 in Pontotoc County, which is a busy highway. So if you are getting out, don't, would be my suggestion. And if you are out in this rain, pull off as far as you can on the side of the road, turn your hazards on, turn your lights on, because the visibility right now is very, very slim to none, really, because that rain is really pouring down.
And I missed the very beginning of that because we had it coded with the mics back at the studio there. Where was that at?
This is from Crystal, that she was in Pontotoc County on Highway 6. So, I mean, a very busy highway, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, at this time, like you've been talking about, kids getting out of school, people going places, don't get out and drive if you have to because visibility is really poor. Also, I will say, if you do have any other videos, you can send them in using the app.
Yeah, there's place, right next where you send pictures, send in videos. Emily can pull them up and we'll get those on the screen, and we appreciate that. Our Emily Leonard, again, reporting this evening. Thank you so much. As we look here at 3:38 p.m., severe thunderstorm warning continuing there from Monroe County. Strongest portion of this is pretty much right into Bigby. I'm going to clear off our track, but you can see it's basically right there along 371 where it intersects with Bigby. That's moving into Amory within the next couple minutes. This is not going to be widespread a high-end wind damage. Now, that's not to say this isn't damaging, because I do expect, as this kind of moves in from the northwest, that we're probably going to see some 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts with it. So that will cause some spotty wind damage reports with it in the Amory area fairly soon. Our camera there in Amory, one of them that we've been kind of monitoring again here behind the scenes. I'll swing this over to our camera there for a moment. And let's check out, again, the way that's kind of bobbing back and forth here. I mean, you can definitely see that it's fairly rough looking. I'm going to swing this back around to the west. Man, my mouse is not wanting to click today. Okay. So yeah, okay, we're looking basically then west into this. Let's look back northwest then, based on where this camera is. Give me just a moment. And there again is that sort of shelf cloud. As we zoom this out, you see again, it's got all the low-hanging stuff with it as well. It's going to look a lot worse than the reality of what it is. And so I just want to emphasize one more time, we are not talking about a scenario here where we have tornadoes with this. This is going to be some gusty winds, yes, but this is not going to be tornadoes or anything along those lines. So I just want to make sure we're 110% clear on that and the way this is behaving here. Okay? So back over to Mama Justice Doppler radar. And again, those north winds, again, bringing in the gusty winds. Most reports here in this 40 to 50 miles per hour. Double checking what we have coming in from the folks at the National Weather Service here. No new reports since this warning originally came out a few minutes ago. The only real update is that Chickasaw has been kind of sliced off the backside of this. Let's look at our True Shield hail reports. Again, nothing on that I think is probably actually any sort of hail to contend with. So maybe some very small hail. On the wider shot here, let's go back to rainfall mode, make sure there's nothing else we're missing. I think back toward Eupora, again, these storms from Houston to Eupora, they are a little bit weaker comparatively speaking. We'll put a storm track on the whole group of them. Most of these, again, right there, we'll say 20 miles per hour could be just a little bit fast, but we'll say 20 miles per hour or so. Double check that. So there's some times there. Again, no severe thunderstorm warnings officially out of this batch. Our camera there in Houston, again, kind of contending with what some of these storms are kind of bringing with them. That's, again, that very heavy rainfall that's kind of following in place with that in Houston. Again, current conditions there, obviously not severe. And you can see how it's really the kind of northeast portion of the county where we have that warning in place. I'm going to swing this camera around if you give me a moment. And let's make sure that we're kind of facing back toward the south. I want to catch the storms to the south for a time here. So this is going to swing this. So give me just a second here as we look into kind of some of the closest. And yeah, so you can see looking south again, that's that heavier rainfall from that storm. So let's look back toward the north and really more east. So we're kind of looking back into the heart of where that storm was, and this will swing this back toward the east. And yeah, you can even kind of see the leading edge of that shelf cloud there in Houston just on that shot as well, which is pretty similar, obviously, to what the shot we were looking at just a moment ago coming in from the Amory area, which, I mean, certainly looks rough and twisty. Severe thunderstorm warning continuing for you in Amory until 4:15. Check in with Caleb and of course, Gabe back in our Tupelo studios there. And Gabe, as we head over to the chroma key wall here for a second, again, tracking these storms, heavy rainfall, gusty winds, have not had a ton of reports in the chat as of yet, but we'll go ahead and kind of check through some of those, right?
Yeah, so looking at the chat there, I saw Nettleton getting a lot of rain and wind now. Nettleton almost seeing where the storm is intensifying. Even the folks there at the National Weather Service in Memphis talking about that strong wind signature now showing up out of our Monroe County site, and Nettleton not far away from that in the grand scheme of things. I did also see, you know, don't park under the underpasses or don't block underpasses. That's an issue with these storms, is folks like to travel on the roads and then they get stuck on the roads and they don't want to end up driving through it. I've been caught in an underpass situation and it just becomes a big hazard. So that's why we tell you in advance, do not get on the roadways. If you're trying to get on Highway 45 and make that commute, just wait a few minutes, let that pass on by, and then you'll be able to continue through your afternoon as normal. That's the thing with these storms, is they're not long-lived, but they will move through the area and pack quite the punch. I did see, I was trying to see, we've had a lot of damaging winds with these storms this year. Can't remember previous years being like this. You know, that's just your typical summer-like pattern. You get that convective temperature, fires off that storm, and then the boundaries start forming and more are able to build off of it. And we've had that, unfortunately, quite a bit the past couple of weeks. And a large part of that has been the damaging winds as the primary concern. And Matt, that again remains a possibility tonight. And we need to make sure we're doing our part to stay safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that just means, you know, staying in as these storms kind of move through and letting them do their thing. Current time is 3:45, about 30 minutes left on a severe thunderstorm warning that remains in effect out here for Monroe County, Mississippi, southern Lee County, southern Itawamba, and the far, far, far eastern portion of Chickasaw County. Again, any damaging wind is probably going to be on the leading edge of this storm, and most wind gusts will probably not be truly damaging, most in that 35 to 45 mile per hour range. We're going to spend a lot of time on wind mode here. Just because we're showing the greens and the reds doesn't mean we're talking tornadoes. This is not a tornado threat for today. This is gusty winds, and again, they are going through Amory right now. A shot of our camera there in Amory once again is that camera's just on the south side of town, so we're probably going to have some gusty winds and certainly have some gusty winds before it fully kind of moves into and through there as well. Looking at this again, kind of bobbing back and forth there. So most of our wind gusts somewhere in the neighborhood of around 45 miles per hour. Looking at that shot as well. We'll kind of pan it northward and sort of look back into town. And gives this a second to kind of swing back that direction there along the kind of where this is headed. And again, that moving into the Amory area pretty much as we speak. With some of those gusty winds are really through Amory. The lightning really is kind of running a little bit behind. That's one of, I guess, the other kind of noteworthy factors with this is that the lightning is kind of lagging a little bit behind this, and there's plenty of strikes with that. So checking our shear on this, which is, you know, something if we looked for like rotation, we typically would see. I'm not looking for rotation on this. What I'm looking for by putting it in the shear mode here is maybe there's an area with a little bit of an extra wind enhancement. And I don't really see anything on that too terribly bad. Kind of on the north side there, you can see where there's just a little bit going along 25 and going to stay just slightly north of 278 as it goes there toward Hatley. This portion maybe just a little bit stronger as that moves through there. As we go back to Gabe here for a moment, we've seen the cancellation of Marion County, Alabama, as that fairly quickly exited there. And we're going to track some additional thunderstorms around the region. Gabe, again, looking to track some of those now.
Yeah, Matt, you're exactly right. And I will say the National Weather Service in Memphis saying they're upping that current severe thunderstorm warning to winds potentially at 70 miles an hour. So we will need to be watching this storm as it moves through Amory because this could be a pretty damaging setup as it moves into the area. But yes, that is a positive. The fact that Marion County being trimmed off, folks traveling I-22 from Hamilton to halfway to Jasper, seeing a much calmer commute. But I want to bring it back on this storm because it is going to be the more impactful one, especially with that intensification ongoing. I think one of the reasons why this is able to intensify once again is because that boundary is feeding right into this storm. Being able to maintain that through Amory, and this is going to go right along Highway 6 up until the state line and even into Lamar County. So I know folks over there at the National Weather Service in Birmingham are watching that for you. But this severe thunderstorm warning, current time is 3:48. This is until 4:15, so we will need to monitor that. But let's track this out. And you know, with this specific cell, we were looking at about 25 miles an hour a little bit earlier on. I think it's better to kind of let's keep that, and that'll give a little bit more of a heads up, even if this has slowed down a little bit. So as we track this out, continue to move towards the south and east. Let me clear off the Skycam network. We can see Amory. I mean, it's basically, I would say, a minute or two away from you with those strongest wind gusts. Towards the Hedgemore community, 350, Highland Park, 351, Wildwood, 352, Glenwood, 353, Parkview around that same time frame, East Haven, 354, Longview, 355, Lakewood, 359, Piney Grove, 401, and Athens by 402. As I trim this off, I want to make sure we mention as many communities as possible, because with this intensifying, we could see some of those reports start to come in. Hatley were 401, Aberdeen 404, and Caledonia by 442. A positive with where this is positioned is the fact that we do have several different cameras that we're able to take views into this storm. So let's go ahead and look out of our Amory camera and then work our way to the south. So Amory, you can see right there, right in the path of this severe thunderstorm warning. And as we're looking at that camera, you can see it shaking there in the distance. I do see a few folks still on the roadway, so I hope that they get to their destination pretty quickly so they're not caught in the storm on those roads driving at some faster speeds. I mean, 50, 60 miles an hour, definitely possible. So 90 degrees, that's going to be some rain-cooled air that we get to enjoy. But with that rain-cooled air, that's that outflow boundary that forms, and that's where you're getting additional development towards the south and west. Those dark clouds moving in, a little bit of forming as well. Our meteorologist Caleb Edelblut has a few pictures of those that you guys have sent in, and we'll look at that here momentarily. But Amory, a view that we'll need to utilize here in the next few moments. I also want to go down south to Aberdeen, because you saw the track that this was going on, eventually trying to move into southern Monroe County. I mean, that's a pretty good look at that shelf. Wow. I mean, you see the shelf cloud at the top of your screen, the dark base of that rain shaft where it's going to be the heavy rainfall, and that's great for our trees, that's great for our plants in our gardens, but it's going to make for some blinding rainfall on the roadways. And you see the base of the cloud there on the left side, I guess would be the right side of your screen. Had to get my bearings right. But the right side of your screen there, the sun kind of peeking through, the sun helping to add some of that destabilized air to our atmosphere and allowing these storms to continue to be on the stronger side. But look at the winds. You can see it kind of swirling the trees there at the base. This is the outflow boundary out ahead of the storms that's kind of branching off of this main severe thunderstorm warning. So you're watching the winds in advance, and that could knock down some limbs, could knock down some trees, but we do expect perhaps some trees to be knocked over due to the strong winds within this severe thunderstorm warning. Now we also want to look out of Caledonia. Well, we can look at Smithville too, out towards the west, I believe, based on the positioning here. And this would be looking into that severe thunderstorm warning, still where some of those stronger winds are right along that leading edge. And this is going to be from Smithville all the way down to Amory and all the way down there towards the Houston area as this kind of works its way towards the south and east. That severe thunderstorm warning in place until 4:15. So we'll be watching that for sure. And I want to go Caledonia just to look a little bit out ahead of this because we may get a good visual on the shelf. It may not be turned the right way. Yeah, still looking south and east. So Caleb, if you want to adjust that looking north and west and let me know when it's there, then we will come back to that camera. But bringing it back to Amory, because this is where the strong gusty winds are basically overhead, not far away. It's not updating. I hope we didn't lose it. Okay, perfect. Okay, it's back. So there's your view, and there's a look at some of those travelers there on the roadways. Trying to see, yeah, so that rain already starting to fall down. It is going to be a pretty heavy downpour within this as well, and whenever you mix in the winds, it's going to blow around that rainfall and make it pretty blinding there on the roadways. Now, I do want to look back at our wind signature here, and while we talk about the winds and what they could be, right now getting readings of about 46 miles an hour, and even some of the brightest returns there up to 50, probably down at the surface 50 to 60 miles an hour being maintained, and we're close to the radar site now. So the unfortunate part of this is we get
Oops, sorry, that switched it back over here as I was looking at Amory and I'm checking something here behind the scenes. Again, gusty winds out of this there. Looking into that there in Amory. We'll bring Gabe back up here in just a moment with that. Let's kind of pan this, I think, just a little bit over to the left slightly. Again, lots of low-hanging stuff. No tornadoes are going to come out of these storms. I just can't be more clear about that than what I'm being right now. Let's bring Gabe back in here for what you're talking about. Gabe, go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say with the unfortunate part, it's like, oh, you left him on a cliffhanger. But no, the unfortunate part about where this is positioned is it's about to move right through the radar site. So we're not going to get as accurate of data because it's moving right overhead of the dome. So unfortunately, we're not going to get the best readings there for probably here in the next 10 to 15 minutes or so. But as of right now, you're at least seeing those strong wind gusts there at the surface. And Do what?
New warning.
New
is about to
warning.
be issued.
Okay, new warning on the way from our meteorologist Caleb Edelblut as that storm continues to track through Monroe County.
Okay, and just kind of going a little wider, Caleb, it's not on this one. It's probably on the Chickasaw County storm, isn't it?
Yes, it's going to be for the Clay County.
There you go.
Yeah, so it's the Chickasaw County storm. The folks there at National Weather Service in Jackson, rather, deciding to go ahead and pull one on that. We'll go ahead and reset things here for a moment and look at that. So current time is 3:54. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon, Clay County there, and a sliver there of Webster County now under a severe thunderstorm warning till 4:45. Damaging wind potential. The reason why this has been issued. I mean, let's address the elephant in the room here. Well, this says, whoa, we got some shear, we got some rotation. Let's talk through what it's looking at, what it's not seeing, and what it is seeing. So looking at the rotation on this, it does show that maybe there was the littlest bit there a couple moments ago, and sometimes this again detects a little early, but I'm not particularly convinced. Let's pull off the lightning. It shows some reds and greens, but the reds and greens, not really in a situation here that I'd be overly concerned about that. But let's just do our due diligence. Let's make this a loop that is over the last 30 minutes, and we'll make it one of the slow loops so we get every single frame possible here as well. Yeah, no, that's not something I'm concerned with there. This is going to be, again, the place where we get some of those gusty winds, again, near Sparta and moving toward Montpelier and Beasley. This is wind, maybe a couple hailstones. This is not tornadoes. That is the expectation today. We're not expecting tornadoes. We're probably not going to see tornadoes out of these thunderstorms here. So let's track that whole batch there. Again, we'll say about 20 miles per hour. That could be a little fast. I'll drag that to where we kind of clip West Point on that. Again, Clay County, officially West Point out of this warning because it's not moving quite fast enough to get there. We look about 4:50 for you, or about an hour before it makes it there. And that's the reason you're not in the warning, by the way, is because it'd be a little past the expiration time there. So Manti at 3:57 over top of you right now. Some strong gusty winds with this. Moving in the direction there of Bars. I believe that's Bars Mill, Palestine, Beasley, all kind of in the path of this thunderstorm that could potentially have some wind gusts up in excess of 60 miles per hour. Wide shot here back on the regular rainfall mode on Mama Justice Doppler radar. Looking again at that cluster of storms. We talked about this last night, how we're going to have kind of a batch of thunderstorms that develop and then they kind of push ahead. That's what this one is doing, getting more organized. And it's not going to be an everybody sees wind damage situation, but spotty wind damage a possibility. Gabe's talked a bunch about this. We have the convergence here of this the storm following right along. It's almost like a highway for it, but it's an area of rain-cooled air coming from the north out of some of the thunderstorms that direction, and that's what's kind of prompted this severe thunderstorm warning there for Monroe County. We're concentrating a lot on Monroe County because Monroe County is kind of getting the brunt of this as well. I will say north side of Amory looks like it has the heaviest, strongest winds kind of slid down toward Becker here, and moving toward Athens and Westville and Quincy ahead of this, where some of that is going at this point in time. Another shot, we'll look at a couple different shots of this. Our shot from Aberdeen here. Give me a moment here to pull up our camera in Aberdeen. And we'll kind of look into this. Again, we're going to look kind of back toward the north and east on this. So kind of blowing around just a little bit there. Let's swing this to the northeast. And I'll give this just a second to kind of pan out that direction. Most of what we're looking at, again, the gray there, that's the heavy rainfall, and that's sort of the leading edge. We call that a shelf cloud. There's a tendency to kind of assume that dark clouds are bad clouds. It's not necessarily the case in this situation here. It's not necessarily bad clouds that we're talking about here. It's just going to be some gusty winds as these sort of move through there. It doesn't look like my camera. Oh, it's going to go way high once it finally catches up here in a minute. But yeah, so that's that storm that's up there toward Amory. Certainly, as we look back northwest on that, it's not quite as impressive, the part that's moving toward the Aberdeen area at this time. So again, Hatley, Becker, you're kind of in the heart of whatever this is producing right now. That's the question I have for you guys is, what is this producing depending on where you're at? Whether Mississippi Live Weather Remix Contest, that's interesting. What I don't see over there, looking at the list, is I see some whatabouts, but I'm not getting a lot of reports there from what people are actually seeing that it's that bad. When we have like a high-end, legitimate, severe weather event ongoing, usually it's just bam, 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 bam. There's questions. And in this case, I think questions are actually a good thing. That means that maybe the reality of this isn't as bad as what it could be. And that always is a situation we hope for, that, we prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And certainly we're hoping that that is not the worst for sure. And there's no tornadoes out of this. I just can't say that enough times here to make sure we're kind of crystal clear on that. Back here toward Manti, we do have a camera down in Mabin that we can check out there. Looking out of that camera there in the Mabin area towards some of those strong thunderstorms. Again, Clay County, parts there of Webster County under severe thunderstorm warning. You can see, again, there's that warning in the northern part of the county, just north of where our FastNet camera is there in Mabin. Looking into, again, dark clouds, low clouds, no tornadoes out of any of these clouds today. Back on Mama Justice Doppler. So again, Montpelier and right there along 46, moving along 389, where this is heaviest at this time as it heads southward there, close to Hill Road, along 389 and Hugh Mosley Road, again, moving toward Palestine. That's where it is strongest, kind of heading through some of those spots right now. The wind is not going to show up as impressive on this just because of the positioning of where we're at. Though our peak threats does show potential here, and again, severe thunderstorm warning Clay County, but right where that purple is in Chickasaw County, possibly a few hailstones with it. Let's check our True Shield hail swath. And by the way, I did talk to Foster with True Shield, and they're going to go ahead and lower the threshold for what you can enter and win that $100 gift card. So we might not get all the way to 1-inch hail today, but if we don't, if we're at 3/4-inch hail, the largest hailstone, you got to put it next to a coin. You got to do something to make sure that that we can measure exactly if that is the largest, but largest hailstone there could win a $100 Walmart gift card, so you can spend it obviously at Walmart, not just on roofing, but appreciate our friends at True Shield Roofing for doing that. Wind here, our next warnings could potentially be down here closer to Bellefontaine and Walthall, if that storm kind of strengthens a little bit more as well. These are still fairly spotty, still a little bit of time away before that happens. Lightning is kind of one of those good indicators. Shows 744 lightning strikes. You can clearly see, though, if we pull it out here, that there are a few spots where the lightning clusters are most significant. Those are the spots there where obviously we are expecting to have the biggest issues with severe weather potential out of this. And certainly that's where power outages have been the most significant as well in the trailing portion of this. We come up here as a severe thunderstorm warning. We've seen Lee County clipped off the backside of that there. Gabe's been looking at the power outage situation, as has Caleb as well. A couple of concentrated areas, right?
Yeah, Tombigbee EPA going to be active once again tonight. And as we're looking at those outages, when Caleb was looking at it, real isolated and sporadic whenever those reports were coming in, but those reports starting to become more numerous. 103 outages just north of Nettleton, including a few outages in the downtown Nettleton area. That's about 5 there. Looking more towards Shannon, our friends there over at Shannon, the Red Raiders, we were there last Friday seeing 30 outages. So I know they're excited to get the power back on and restored, but luckily those reports are not as numerous as they have been in previous events, currently sitting at about 168 outages. So the folks there at Tombigbee EPA not going to be having as busy of a night, and we're fortunate that those reports are not in the thousands like they were last week. But as we continue to look out of Northeast Mississippi EPA, there's where the outages continue to amount to 600, 700 folks. We're 678 members affected. So that's where the most outages are being reported. And looking at the latest tally here from Mississippi with the folks there at poweroutage.us, Union and Lafayette, the ones that stand out with the folks there at Northeast EPA, and then over towards the Tombigbee EPA coverage area. Of course, we're going to look down south. We do have 4 county up, but we're going to have to go to some local power cooperatives in Chickasaw County. So we'll pull that up here momentarily, Matt, and we'll have those updates coming in for you. But even looking here behind the scenes at some of the pictures that you guys are submitting, let me make sure that we have that up. These are a lot of just the shelf clouds that have been sent in, including one around Smithville and then other views around Amory, just all across the area. And some impressive shots, all things considered. The SLCs have been showing up and showing out, but luckily those reports are not coming in as of just yet. And I'm looking at the latest there. Yeah, plenty of lightning, but luckily I'm still not seeing any damage reports here at the Mississippi Live Weather Center. So that's a positive. We want those reports to be non-existent, but if you do have any of those reports, send them in through the Mississippi Live Weather app, and those will forward right along to the National Weather Service in Memphis or Jackson, depending on where you're at, and they'll be informed on what those storms are doing. So appreciate all of our weather watchers out in the field for keeping us informed and in the loop on what's happening and what's taking place. But of course, this is going to be still a pretty active evening. So keep the cameras ready. Just do so in a safe manner.
Yeah, and maybe we should also kind of dig in here on what we're not seeing going forward, and that is probably not going to see another significant round for a while. There are storms back out into Arkansas. Still some questions as to how plentiful these become. They don't look like much because we're kind of looking at a radar that's not in the right position from that. So it does remain possible we could potentially see additional thunderstorms as these try to roll in later on tonight. So that's the unfortunate thing. We kind of have a couple of different chances there. While a good chunk of the evening will probably dry out after this line comes through, there remains possibility that overnight we could have some additional issues there as well. Fayette County, Alabama, under a severe thunderstorm warning, and of course Monroe and Clay counties in Mississippi. Southern Itawamba County, perhaps some there. Let's go ahead and check out our latest here. Looking at the precipitation mode on Mama Justice Doppler. Yeah, and the lightning is down a lot on our Monroe County storm. Look at the front half of this, right? And then look at the back half, amount of lightning. Now check our storm down here in Clay County, right? A lot more lightning kind of on the leading sort of edge. One of the signs when we start watching that lightning, the density, the number of lightning reports diminish, typically that's a sign that the intensity has somewhat as well. And so that's the hope and the prayer in this situation, but we're not talking about, again, tornadoes. Let's go here and look at the wind portion of this and go back to the wind mode because we are right there by the radar site. Again, that wind is pretty much getting right into there at this point in time. Pretty much right there along the edge there near Quincy and back out here north of Westville where it's probably strongest at this moment. Going back to the rainfall mode, and you can see again, it's this portion here. It's kind of leading and pushing ahead there through Athens and Westville, pretty much right along the intersection of this boundary. That point there that's continuing to kind of get everything colliding and trying to continue to allow that to develop toward the south and east. As far as our severe threats go on this, perhaps in the worst case scenario, some hail. Not seeing a whole lot of reports of hail coming in. I'll check our chat with you. Again, looking what you're looking at. Hey, in West Point. We're in West Point today. Again, talking to kids there a little earlier on. Some scary lightning there in Amory. Rotation of clouds in Aberdeen. You're going to see little spins in the clouds from time to time there, but we're not particularly concerned about that at this point. Columbus going to get bad weather. I do think some of the thunderstorms go through there. In Becker, wind was not too bad, mainly a heavy rain situation. There's our check mark that we're looking for on this, okay? So I think that says Heather. Hey, Heather Russell, appreciate you on YouTube there. That comment means the world to me because that allows us to calibrate, right? Like, for example, if you're a kid and you play basketball and you're the best basketball player you know, but you're the only basketball player you know, you might not be a very good basketball player. But if you're the best basketball player you know and you're the best basketball player on your team, okay, you're probably a pretty good player. And so you can calibrate more cleanly the more information you have. And so in this case, it allows us to say, if Becker, which kind of went through one of the heavier parts of this, if you're saying, well, it wasn't that bad in Becker, and it was a little bit north of Becker, so it depends on where directly in Becker you live, right, versus where it shows up here, that means that maybe this isn't quite as bad, and that's what we would like to be there as well. Looks like, again, Shannon Nettleton exit. Nikki reporting that there was potentially a car overturned there. That's something we'll work with our Emily Leonard to confirm with the folks here at Lee County E911 that apparently a pickup flipped there. Let me check our chat with the National Weather Service here behind the scenes as well. Again, they're just the same thing here. Monroe County Airport recorded 37-mile-per-hour wind gust. That had been 1 minute ago. Although it was south of where the strongest winds appear to have been. Current warning set to expire here soon and going to determine if they will issue a new warning or not. I would say based off of what I'm hearing out of Becker there, and what they're getting off that official thing, I think again I see someone mentioning lightning rough there in the Smithville area. I think that could be the worst of what this is. Yeah, this now let's look at this. Let's keep it in close and let's get perspective. So about 243 strikes just on this kind of zoomed in view there versus what we have up here. It's a few more, but also the thunderstorm lived a little longer. If I get the gist of those, I think it's pretty similar, all things considered, though the lightning strikes on the increase. The flashing zigzags you see, those are new strikes, and there's still a decent amount running ahead of all of these. And so warnings for strong wind in particular, but thankfully these are not as high end as some of the wind events that we've had so far this warm season, this summer season as well. I'm going to track the whole part here, kind of a zigzaggy sort of line, because he's someone asking about Columbus. We're going to make the assumption here.
Yeah, I know what happened. That's what you call some hours of severe weather coverage, and the mic just not being able to handle the heat, so it got out of the kitchen. So as we look at our Mama Justice Doppler radar, you can see how these storms continue to fire off, working their way right along the boundary. And as these storms remain along the boundary, they're still going to be strong enough to where we could see these develop into severe limits. Now, that report out of Becker, and again, if you have any reports like that, send it in to us here at Mississippi Live, then that's where we're going to be able to assess things later on. So that report in Becker helping us get a gauge on what these storms are capable of, and we appreciate all of your reports that continue to come in behind the scenes. Well, is Mike back in action?
Yeah, I have like a backup battery here just in case that happens. I was going to change out mics earlier today, but then we had storms and I changed out enough stuff. Can't do cameras and mics all in the same day, or else we're just tempting fate.
Well, Matt Laupon outpaced a mic, beating technology once again.
No, it hit me in the jaw first, but yeah, we're doing the best we can on that there. Hey, let's go to our camera up there in the Aberdeen area, sort of checking out that storm as it's moving in. We actually need to probably go down to Clay County after that. So here in Aberdeen and kind of in the rainfall, looking out there at this moment, again, 84 degrees. There's that report from the nearby station there, 26 miles per hour out of the north. So there is some wind in this for sure. But at this point in time, just kind of looking at this, again, sporadic wind damage, I would say that's the main impact that we could see. Now, I referenced them a minute ago here, but you can give your reports to us, again, sending those in using the Mississippi Live app. I'm looking behind the scenes at the pictures you guys are sending in. We'll get some of these shots here from Gabe in a minute, but I don't see any damage pictures coming in. So if you have damage pictures that you'd like to share with us, certainly you can help us to have a better idea of what's going on. Send those in using, again, the Mississippi Live app, free and available for basically any platform you can find it. And for those of you trying to keep maybe your phone charged up, Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, those on the standard screen there. Is it off again? Or that must be a delayed report. Oh, that was 2 minutes ago. I hate it when the phone does that. It's like, hey, you missed this text message. No, we took care of that 2 minutes ago. So let's go back here on the wider shot. Again, we'll pull up our camera down in West Point. That camera, let's see the direction we got this looking again, kind of back into the line. We've got storms again, prompting warnings. I think it's telling to look at the little radar inset there so that you can see, again, storms to the north that are severe, storms to the northwest that are severe, hopefully not storms that directly move in, but clearly we've got some of those stronger looking clouds eventually getting closer. And appreciate our friends over there at 4 County Fastnet providing this viewpoint here, and of course the folks there at North Mississippi Storm Chasers as well. Let's see if I can get that Mabin camera to pop up. And again, Mabin a little bit south of that. Again, just kind of gray and dark and sort of waiting for it to come along there, sliding down toward Oktibbeha County and Starkville. That one does, I think, a slightly better job of showing what it looks like when you have the heavy rainfall. And again, that's the gusty wind all the way north there that'll be coming with that stronger thunderstorm eventually, as it, I mean, it's on a target that it could make it there if it holds together. I'm just not convinced that specific storm will all the way to that point there. Gabe's got pictures. You've got pictures. Gabe's been looking at some of those that you have been kind of sending in and sort of sharing with us here. Looks like we've got a video there behind you of someone trying to drive through this. Thankfully, the person recording that's in the passenger seat. You know how I feel about that.
There's positives and negatives to take from a video. I appreciate you sending it in to us. This is Crystal over there along Highway 6, I assume over there in Monroe County. But they had to get off to the side of the road. And this is what we always encourage. If you're thinking about driving whenever these storms are moving through and you're able to maybe take a step off to the side, or actually just get off on an exit and maybe go fuel up, get some gas, get some snacks, whatever you want to do. That's why we always encourage you to do so, because with an overturned vehicle that was being reported and then just seeing all the cars on the road there at Highway 6, we just want to make sure that we exercise extreme caution and don't get caught in the middle of the storm, because as you can see, nearly undrivable as those cars are just stopping along Highway 6. So Matt, never what you want to see. Of course, you can see the power of this storm, but whenever you see that many cars just basically forming a parking lot on Highway 6, that becomes a more dangerous setup.
It does indeed. There's my weather call saying, hey, that warning's been expired for up in the Lee County area. So
there you go.
That's kind of the follow-up phone call on that. One of the good signs there as well. Coming back here and then checking again, we're looking in Starkville. So let's clear that off and look at and reset things now that warning has been allowed to expire, and look at kind of the overall viewpoint of where things are. First off, Monroe County, we've been tracking this severe thunderstorm warning for you. National Weather Service in Memphis choosing not to reissue that, in large part just because we have not had as many reports out of that recently. And when you have one of these, like the area that went directly over top of the Monroe County Airport there and did not have severe wind gusts, that's about as good information as they need to say, okay, maybe we can back off of this just a little bit there. In saying that, before we're completely done, detaching from this, I do want to point out that we do have, again, rain-cooled air coming in from an outflow boundary to the east. Now, that's going to smack into here. And so I expect this to expand down and get heavier all the way down there on 45 into the Columbus area because of it. We've had a couple little showers and storms developing close to Columbus. Our camera there in Caledonia sort of has a shot in and around this as well. And we're checking this one out here in Caledonia. Again, looking at the dark clouds. Give me a moment and I'll see. I think I've got everything in there to where I can pan this one as well. Let's look back toward the northwest. Make sure we're kind of looking the right direction on that one there. And let's go a little more north then. So you can see kind of in the foreground there. There we are. There's a better shot. And again, that's the area of heavy rainfall and gusty winds that's moving there in Monroe County. And so we expect this to kind of develop along this boundary, kind of toward the camera where this is. So give me a moment, if you will, while I kind of swing this all the way around to the south. What I'm wanting to look at on this, I went the wrong way. I was hoping to go the opposite way. That's fine. You can see the leading edge there of, again, one of those shelf clouds. Actually, there's more of a roll cloud there because it was detached. And as we're swinging now back toward the southeast, there's some of the spotty storms. And we'll look back in here closer to Columbus, that's south. And now we're going to look southwest. So see, we have a few of these little spotty storms that are developing, as well as kind of the bigger ones there. So we expect that line to kind of probably fill in within the next 15, 20 minutes here, hopefully below severe limits, but they're right along that line from along 45 where that could be the case. Going back to the wind mode here, and then we're going to slide over to Clay County. You'll see how it changes from green to red. That has everything to do with, again, our scale here at the top. Green means into the radar, which of course is right there where the sweep's coming out. And then once it passes the radar, it's like, okay, now it's away. So that's why it goes over to red. So no nefarious things going on here. We're not talking about tornadoes or anything like that because of the green and the red. In this case, it's standard straight line winds that we're tracking and experiencing here. So for Clay County, Western Clay County in particular, this batch of storms, I'm not convinced we're all the way up to 60-mile-per-hour winds, but spotty wind damage possible. We'll look 3D on this, which we have not done much today. And that could end up, man, we should have done this a little earlier. That's my bad. So let's look here. That does a good job, I think, of kind of giving us a look. So these storms back here toward Lexington are not nearly as impressive as some of these. Really, our cluster there in like Western Clay County and Webster County, those are our strongest at this point. Just kind of looking on this three-dimensional way to sort of view things here on Mama Justice Doppler. It's still possible that that Monroe County storm, you know, we lose the top of it because we're so close to the radar there. That's probably a little more impressive than what that, I think, looks like in first blush. But these storms back out here, far northwest Clay County into Webster County, those are the strongest ones because you can see they're just tallest. And when they stand taller like this, and yet you can kind of see the cuts of the radar there at the top, but that one there is tall enough that it could still have maybe some hailstones with it. Let's go ahead and look and cut through this, kind of like a CAT scan there to the most intense parts. And there are a few areas there. I'm going to stop it right at 60 dBZs. There we go. We'll go back to 2D for a second to kind of place where those are. So we have, I think, one area still here in Monroe County where we probably have some hail. We have, there's strong community there, right along 45, kind of the intersection there again, southwest of Aberdeen, and where 45 and 25 all kind of come together there. And then we have back out here into northern Webster County. Those are the kind of three sort of spots there. We probably have something aloft that's yet to make it to the surface there. So it's just kind of this sort of wad of hail there, I think, in either case. This one in particular back west, as that collapses, that has more of a wind damage potential with that as well. So that's what we'd be looking at there. Again, closer to the Woodland area, Atlanta community. And that's going to be tracking just on kind of the west side of this warning there that's in effect till 4:45. Let me track specifically that area, because I would say out of everything we have now, unless there's more organized wind gusts than what we're kind of picking up on there, this is the most likely damaging part of this. So we show Walker's Gin at about 4:48 and the Dancy community right around at 4:36. A Doppler radar indicating, again, some strong gusty winds, probably some hail out of this, going specifically to our True Shield hail detection and pulling off all those lightning strikes. In fact, I'm going to give me a moment to change my lightning here. Sometimes we don't have many, or we're trying to really kind of catch it. There are two ways I show lightning. I'm going to go back to the lines here so we can kind of see through it a little better. But there are kind of a clustering of areas there where we're up here in that probable category for hail. So if you do have hailstone 1 inch or larger, send in those shots using the Mississippi Live app. Largest hailstone next to a coin, next to a ruler. Make sure email address is right. We've had a couple where people have sent it in, and if you were expecting us to call you back about yours and let you know, hey, you were the winner, we've had a couple where I think the email addresses are just wrong that people have put on there. Some decent-sized hailstones. I think we've had at least one winner that we probably didn't get because the email address was wrong. So make sure when you submit it that your email address is spelled right, so that we can, get that to you. But I do think that this is probably producing a little bit of hail, and certainly that would be one of the areas that we would be watching, that potential western, eventually moving into western Clay County, but far southwest Chickasaw County at this time. We'll check our camera there in Houston. And we'll kind of look back into that. And that would, we need to look back toward the southwest. Just give me a moment for this camera to sort of pan back that direction there. So that's kind of the back side of that. And so this is all just kind of the gray, the dark gray associated with the heavy rain and some hail. I'd say, again, the southwest corner of that storm right there, that could be the hail, but we're looking all the way back into Chickasaw County, Webster County to try to catch some of that. Our Caleb Edelblue is looking at what some of the power outage situation is. Again, we're not extreme on the number of power outages, Caleb, but there are some out there.
Yes, no, I like how you started it. It's definitely not extreme, but anybody out of power is still significant to us here in North Mississippi. So I wanted to still highlight those as we're still talking about them. Union County, making a comeback with some of that color returning. Talk about 370 customers or more being affected. But the good news is when we flip through, I mean, we're really not seeing too much color. Those isolated outages that we were talking about earlier, they are coming back online very, very quick, especially with Pontotoc EPA. They are working very hard to get that outage restored for you guys. Again, I think our most noticeable one continues to be out here in northeast Mississippi, and I'll refresh. It refreshes every minute, but yeah, just to double check. I mean, we're still dealing with 604 between Lafayette and Union County, dealing with most of those outages kind of right along the county line, 65 just south of Hickory Flat. I would say that's kind of the area that we're watching closest with those outages, but unfortunately with our Tong, Bigby, EPA still seeing some of those start to come back up. Again, very isolated as we're talking about these blue boxes between Lee and Itawamba County, but we're talking about a greater outage area, 126 within that orange here, and then yellow, I'll have to look on the other monitors, just slightly delayed, coming in at 68 out there in the southwestern portion of Itawamba County. So unfortunately, still dealing with a few outages. Ford County Electric starting to pick on some as well, as these storms are kind of right on the border and starting to enter that area where that severe thunderstorm warning is currently ongoing. So we're going to continue to keep our eyes on these outages. Unfortunate to see them still being reported, but good news that it's not very widespread.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a sign that, again, these are not high-end severe weather. This is not a severe weather outbreak. So I just want to, kind of emphasize that, as clearly as we can. Appreciate that, Caleb, here in our downtown Tupelo studios. Looking at our camera there in Pittsboro. We're trying to look through the tower there as we look toward the south and east into some of those thunderstorms there that are in the kind of far corner there of Chickasaw County. Not really seeing a whole lot from this angle. I'm wanting to kind of see if we could see the hill portion of this a little bit better. I'm going to have to move this over just one more click. Come on. I'll figure out this mouse situation between broadcasts, but right there, that's kind of the part there where it's producing, I think, some of that larger hail back there, the far southwest corner of Chickasaw County, sort of in that area. Pittsboro, of course, no issues there as we are still sunny and clear at this time. Sliding back over here into Lowndes County, new severe thunderstorm warning has been issued for Lowndes County. We'll go ahead and let folks there know. Give me a moment behind the scenes so that I can switch my control capability over to our storm, our camera there. And let's go ahead and do a push to make sure folks know, again, Lowndes County under a severe thunderstorm warning now in effect until 5:15. Spotty wind damage possibility there. As we check again the wind mode on Mama Justice Doppler, it's all red now, but that red, again, an indication of away from the radar up there in Monroe County. And so I'd say the leading edge of strong winds pretty much right to the Caledonia area at this time. I'll switch over to our Caledonia camera. And yeah, right in it there at this moment. We'll look back toward the north briefly and northwest, kind of look directly into it. Maybe we kind of see the rainfall kind of shooting across the lens here. That's what sometimes happens. Sometimes you can get a sense for just how windy it is there. As you can see, the rain just kind of like blowing across our lens there in the Lowndes County area. So the strongest wind still just now arriving in Caledonia. I know in the comments we've had folks asking, well, what about Columbus? That sort of stuff. Columbus, obviously, this is going to be coming toward where you're out there as well. So certainly heavy rain, maybe some 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Remains a little bit of a question. By the way, for folks behind the scenes here, we do have on the Mississippi Live Facebook page some pictures coming in that way as well. So just there's some pictures coming in on the Mississippi Live Facebook page as well that they are sharing. New severe thunderstorm warning has now been issued. It'll pop on your screen here in just a moment in Lamar County. Part of this storm, again, for the southern portion of Lamar County. Folks there at the National Weather Service in Birmingham will be issuing that any moment here. So let's get a track ahead. This has typically been going about 25 to 30 miles per hour. We'll kind of keep that same speed there. Pull off that. And so there's our new warning for Lamar County. So for folks there, these people that are on this list are for subdivisions and things in and around Lowndes County. So I'll pull that up kind of full screen so you can see it here. The Bent Tree Plantation, we're about 431 Battery Heights at 432. Prospect Heights about 432 there. Again, current time is 428, so the portion of this that's kind of moved through the West Point area is moving there into Columbus here pretty quickly. So expect some 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts out of this storm if it continues at the pace that it's going now. So spotty wind damage certainly remains a possibility out of this. I'm checking behind the scenes. Just make sure there's not a report that we haven't missed. Nope, it's still all possibly maybe stuff, which is good. That's what we're hoping for. And they, of course, did reissue the severe thunderstorm for southern Monroe County because of the wind damage potential in this as well. We didn't directly reference that except for a few minutes ago, so I wanted to make sure we were clear on that. Checking our shear rate, which allows us to look and see if there's any spots where maybe we have some rotation. And as we talked about earlier, I'm looking at this not as much for rotation, but maybe a little wind enhancement there. Caledonia, of course, that's what we're watching for you at this time. No rotation, just strong gusty winds with this as it's kind of moving through your area. I think the best way to show it is kind of on this wind mode where all the red means away from the radar up in Monroe County. And again, spotty wind damage should be expected. Check out our camera down in the Columbus area. Again, our partnership with folks at Mississippi Department of Transportation. The top part of this, again, on the north side of town there, Blue Cut Road and 45. Again, traffic kind of backed up. Folks trying to get home before it gets what it's doing. We still have a few minutes there before that fully rolls through that spot. And you can kind of see the storm a little bit more kind of on the eastern camera. Sort of panned all these together on the same one, but look back toward the northeast along. This would be 82 looking back toward the east. That's that thunderstorm up around Caledonia that could be producing, again, some spotty wind damage. West Point, the worst is through where you're at here. The worst is through where you're at there in West Point. We'll go to that, and we're going to go back over to Caledonia because there has been an upgrade to this warning. And again, just kind of looking into the gusty winds with that. But I think the worst, again, is through there. Let's go back over to Caledonia. And our camera there in Caledonia, I mean, obviously in it, really bouncing around, some strong gusty winds with that. Almost, again, as we're looking into this, 82, but we're still expecting those wind gusts could be up around 65 to 70 miles per hour based on kind of the latest thinking with the folks there at the National Weather Service. Let's see if we can make sure we're zoomed out as far as we can on this. And I do think that we are. Okay, so we'll swing this all the way down south, and perhaps we can see maybe some sheets of rainfall kind of going across. You can kind of see them coming across that camera lens there as well as we look down toward the school. No tornadoes out of this, got to be clear. But some 65 to maybe 70 mile per hour winds, at least according to the National Weather Service down there in Jackson. That's what they're kind of going on this, a possibility on that. But no official reports on it as of yet. Let's look on the velocity here, which allows us to look at the wind. Yeah, okay, I almost missed that. I'm going to bring in Gabe on the BAM for a second. There's no. I need one of these buttons where I stay big and you go small occasionally. But go over to Chroma instead, so that one I can pop up where it's at least the radar's fairly big. But I think the oranges that we're seeing on there, those are the reason they went with that, is at least it's sampling where you have the yellows there, 80 mile per hour winds. That's pretty significant.
And I'm curious to see how that's verifying down towards the surface, because we got reports last week, I remember, or I guess on Saturday, where there were some 90 mile an hour signatures on a storm that was, 60 miles an hour. So, I am curious about the radar, but put that on a loop real quick.
Here's what I'd say. There is consistency on where it is, right?
What I wanted to see, yeah.
Like, you have it right there where it has a couple pixels that are up there to around 80. And if you went north, it was directly north of that where that was. That's not the direction I would necessarily perfectly expect, but that's not unreasonable. Let's go back to precip mode and see if maybe, yeah, it does puff out a little bit more. We need to check out that camera back there. Okay, so thank you for helping me calibrate that there. Let's go ahead and swing the Caledonia camera around to the east. I'm going to get that moving before we even get there. Yeah, you can see the wind coming right off, you know, the fact it's hitting the top of this water tower there and sort of like, there we go. Looking through there, you can see the bands of wind. I would say most of the bands of wind I'm seeing there about 40 miles per hour, maybe 50 miles per hour or so. But it's what's beyond there a little bit that could be that 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. Well, nope, we're getting some gusts that definitely would qualify as severe. So let's go northeast a little bit more. Look kind of into that. Yep. Let's pan this down just a little bit. Oh, I think my button might be set up backward on that. But that definitely, I would say that seems reasonable that we could be getting some 60 mile per hour to 75 mile per hour wind gusts out of that in Caledonia. So wind damage likelihood has increased on this storm, and it's definitely still showing up here. Let's go to wind. Yep, see, that's 3 scans in a row up here northwest of Caledonia or near Caledonia that we had some of those high-end wind reports there out of this. Now, we'll say a couple of those in the same spot, so there could be some kind of tower or something it's seeing, but there's a lot of pixels for that to just completely miss it. And the 38 it shows there because the stronger wind is now a little bit past that spot. So it's been kind of consistent, maybe 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts on that there. So as we go a little wider, the portion of this that is moving through Lowndes County is, again, the northern part of the county where it's the most significant at this point in time, right around there. Now, what are you guys sending in? We'll check in with that to see if we have some damage reports as well as soon as I get a storm track on this here. So again, moving through a lot of subdivisions there in and around the Columbus area right now. Everywhere through Arlington Park within the next 5 minutes or so. It's the northern part of this that's heading into southern Lamar County, which is also under severe thunderstorm warning. It is probably the most intense. Gabe, again, looking at some of your pictures here and what you guys have shared with us.
Yes, Matt. So this is a look out of the Bellefontaine area. This was submitted by Chastity there to the Mississippi Live Facebook page. And you can see the trees broken off there in the distance. So some pretty strong gusty winds moved through Bellefontaine. We saw it on our Mama Justice Doppler radar, so verifying that there on the ground. And as we talk about, it seems like every event, the state bird taking flight once again. Just loose items in the yard, able to get under those winds, or those winds get under it and aloft it into the air. And we got that for sure over there in Bellefontaine. So Chastity, thank you for sending those pictures in. And if you have any reports, send those in as well to us here at Mississippi Live Weather. Another report along West Commerce Street in Aberdeen, close to the Country Club area. This was submitted by Gail. And you can see blocking travel. Trucks, unfortunately, not able to get past, but they're working to clear that as we speak, or at least once these storms get a little bit more calm. But I do think that we're going to try to get in touch once things kind of clear out of Lowndes County of what potential reports we're getting there out of Caledonia. I expect if we're talking 80 miles an hour, then we'll probably get some of those reports here at the Mississippi Live Weather app, but we'll check in with the EMA directors as well and get the latest on what's happening.
Okay, and again, that report you're talking about there was Aberdeen, right?
This was Aberdeen, yes.
Aberdeen. So send in those using the Mississippi Live app. That's something that the folks there at the National Weather Service can see directly. And that, again, pretty decent sized tree that was knocked down there. Current time is 4:37. You're watching Mississippi Live. Again, we're 24/7, the streaming service based out of the Tupelo, Mississippi area here in North Mississippi. This kind of arc that you see here of red is our wind damage along Mississippi Highway 12 there and Woodlawn Military Road there. Again, moving toward the south and east, and will continue to probably cause some sporadic wind damage with it as it does. Going over to our wind mode, the kind of red here, sort of checking to see how fast some of those winds are. We did have a couple scans where we had estimations up in excess of 80 miles per hour. I don't know if that was legit. Either way, this widespread red you see here is going to be somewhere around 50 to 60 miles per hour. That's what most of the wind damage is going to be. Estimations here, I'm not hitting the right pixel on it, but from time to time we've been getting up around 50 miles per hour. The part going into Columbus isn't quite as significant, But let's compare cameras here and you'll kind of get an idea as why. We'll go Caledonia here for a moment, which is still kind of in the heart of about 50-mile-per-hour winds up there in the northern portion of the county, still kind of bouncing around a little bit on top of the water tower there, but that's not quite as rough as it was a minute ago, but I think still probably from 50 to 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts with that still possible. And a decent amount of lightning causing those power disruptions. Going down toward Columbus, you can see a comparison here on the north side of town. Again, blue cut there in 45. The rain is hitting and hitting hard. As you can see, the sheets of the rainfall kind of coming across. You are under a severe thunderstorm warning in the Columbus area, meaning obviously we don't want to find ourselves in our car if possible. And if we get in a situation where we're in a high-profile vehicle, of course, pointing our car into that puts us in a better situation, because your car is used to driving in 70-mile-per-hour winds. It does it every day, or in some cases does it every day. But compare that to what we have just south of that on 45. Yeah, the rain has started, but the strongest winds have not gotten there. This again close to the mall area there in Columbus. Looking back toward the north and east from our camera there, Mississippi Department of Transportation. Again, that's that strong wind up around Caledonia, showing up with the dark gray. And the western shot, which is almost always the one we kind of rely on here, yet to really see it get there into the area. So strong gusty winds moving through Columbus right now, and expected to begin. Yeah, one of those there going across. Look at this. Let's stay on this camera here for a moment. So what we're kind of catching on this here, and I thought what caught me for just a brief moment, I had a wind gust, traveling car speed, right? You can look at the rain as it's moving along. That's one of the ways you can determine how fast is the wind. Now, most of what we're seeing here is not super fast car speed. That would be, 20 mile per hour, maybe 30 mile per hour gusts. Occasionally, though, you'll get one big push, and that might be 50 mile per hour wind gusts there. And let's see if we have the rest of the camera still going. That one might have gone down on us. We'll see if those kind of keep coming in. Some sporadic power outages are going to flick on and off some of the power there with those storms. Okay, and it looks like I'm caught in a group text. With that in mind, we'll go to Gabe for just a moment to check on those power outages so I can eject from the group text here for just a second. He's been looking at power outages here across the northern part of the state.
Yeah, and Union and Lafayette continue to be the highest numbers that we are seeing, but Monroe County is easily adding to some of those outages. Looking at Tom Bigby EPA, it's tough to get a gauge on the Monroe County area, but you can see at least north of Nettleton and then north of northwest of the Smithville area, seeing some of those numbers climb as well. But either way, those outages continue to be reported, and looking more towards this is not far away. Yeah, between Maben and Starkville along Highway 82, we have 381 outages. That was that severe thunderstorm warning that was being reported there towards the Webster County area, working its way on through the Golden Triangle. So easily seeing those outages climb. And as we look more towards Columbus, don't take this as truth, because if we're talking about wind speeds of what they could have potentially been, we're probably going to see a few of these outages climb. We just have not seen that happen just yet. So Columbus, while it's not saying anything right now, folks there at Ford County probably going to be checking that out here momentarily as well. I do want to look back at Pontotoc, though they are in the clear, so at least there is some good news when it comes to those power outages. But Matt, as this continues to trend south and east, there's still a ton of energy that these storms can latch onto, and right there in Lowndes County, I think, is the focal point right now.
Yeah, it is the place that's being kind of hit the hardest at the moment down in Columbus. Our camera there showing again a lot of heavy rainfall. It depends on where you're at. Again, at 45 looking 82, 45 looking west and east. Not too rough yet. But now what was not nearly as rough a minute ago down there closer to the mall area. Obviously, the wind and rain, the heavy rainfall has arrived there. Back over to Mama Justice Doppler radar. And again, Steens and Woodlawn, where this is kind of the strongest. We do have severe thunderstorm warnings that extend back beyond this. And I will say that for folks up here in Monroe County, the severe weather threat for you is over. Hamilton back towards strong, all over and in good shape as far as that is concerned there. Let's get a storm track on this section of the thunderstorm here. So it's been moving close to around, give me a second, Emily, please. About 30 miles per hour. So that's kind of our angle there as it moves toward the southeast, eventually trying to work its way down there through not just Lamar, but Lowndes counties and maybe into Noxubee and Pickens counties as well. It will move through those. It's just a question of whether or not it's severe during that time frame. Again, in Columbus right now as it moves toward the south and east. Yes, Emily?
Gabe's audio is fine. Your lips are
My lips are off. Okay. Significantly?
very noticeable.
Okay. I have a workaround on that. I'll work on that here in a minute. Looking at the other thunderstorms out and around there. Again, gusty winds remain the story out of all of these storms here. We're going to get little areas of convergence that sort of look like things that aren't as significant. But I do think that our next storm that could prompt some wind issues is this storm close to the X Prairie area. Again, just kind of looking at that on Mama Justice Doppler radar. Has not kicked out some damaging winds yet, but our camera down there in Macon, of course, one that we'll be watching very, very closely, showing a lot of heavy rainfall on it, pretty much all directions that we kind of look at this time. 88 degrees nearest temperature there, and you can kind of see the edge. Again, this is that storm that's up there in just a little north of Macon, actually. Might have a few hailstones with that as well. So appreciate our friends at Fastnet there for sponsoring our camera down in the Macon area. As we send it back to Gabe in the studio here for a moment, let's track again some of these thunderstorms. What we'll kind of prioritize here if we can is try to get in, do a storm track, get out, get in, do a storm track, get out, to try, kind of take a look at some of these here briefly. So we're going to, I guess we'll have Caleb, do that here real quick. Nope, wrong button. There we are. Okay,
Yeah.
so we want to get in, kind of get a storm track and get out on that pretty
Okay.
quickly on some of these. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Oop, wrong button. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let's say 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. All right, let's take a look at some of these severe thunderstorm warnings that are currently ongoing. We'll take a storm track on this as it's partly out there in Alabama, and that stronger rainfall continuing to move further. Yeah, we'll do 25. We'll take off our cameras here so we can read that out for this severe, thunderstorm warning ongoing. So Dean Acres and Pinecrest right about now. Brookwood Estates around 447. McCary around 449. New Hopes Park around 449. Lynn Estates around 452. Lakeover Estates 453. Stafford 453. Whiteberry around 453. And then Melrose, 5 o'clock, same for Ethelsville. Macedonia around 503, same for Reform. But again, very disorganized in this area, kind of within the Golden Triangle region as we're dealing with that. We can even back this up just a little bit, bring on some more city names that you guys will recognize a little bit more. So Reform around 503, Gordo 521, Carrollton 530, and Pickensville around 531. So let's do another storm track and we'll clear this off here as we kind of look further out west towards Starkville, Oktibbeha County. You guys starting to get some of that heavy rain, thankfully not warned, and you'll notice that that severe thunderstorm warning out there in Clay expired as well. So we're going to zoom this out just a little bit. And we're going to take a look at some of these storms that are ongoing. We'll go along that heavy batch of rainfall that's continuing to move, and it's going to make its way closer towards Knoxville again, where y'all are just going to get another round of these showers and storms. So Sessom's right about now, Heritage Colony 447, Artesia 456, Winston 457, Oktok and Oktok Road around 458, Crawford 510, Lynn Creek 514, Brooksville 521, Triplets Corner 523, May Spring 529, Deerbrook around 534, Macedonia around 542, gotta get my numbers right, and Macon around 544. Again, always like changing this so where we can kind of pick up on cities and landmarks in the area. Artesia 456, Crawford 510, Brooksville 521, and Macon 544. So hit all of those already. And then we'll go a little bit, well, let's do Knoxville real quick as you guys are dealing with some of that heavy rainfall right now. And we'll kind of draw another one out as it continues to pretty much make its way across the state line, affecting some of our Alabama counties already. We'll continue to do so. We'll still go around 25 miles per hour, just to give you guys a heads up. So Cooksville 449, Dancy around 450, Clearman 453, Ridge around 455, Millington 458, Fair Oaks 504, Warsaw 506, Giles around 509, West Green around 512, Scuba 517, Mount Hebron around 521, Gainesville at 527. And then we'll do one more of these. Yeah, we already hit all of those cities. And Balaguer around 545. And then let's just go a little bit further west as Choctaw County is starting to deal with some heavy precipitates as well. We'll see how that's continuing to move. Yeah, I mean, it's all just really messy down here in the southeastern portion of our coverage area. And we'll do kind of another track along the southern line as it continues to push ever so slowly. That seems to be the story with all these summertime storms that we're dealing with. Boone, right about now, Ford 454, Ellison Range 455, Louisville around 457, Center Ridge 506, Knox Pater around 519, Golson 527, same for Height, Claytown around 528, same for Vernon, Handle 536, Coy around 542, Prince Chapel around 543. And I think we covered most of those cities. Yeah, I mean, we're just getting in the sticks out there. So Louisville around 457, coming up here pretty much, 57, excuse me, within the next under 10 minutes, and Knox Paid around 519 shortly into the 5 o'clock broadcast. And again, we can kind of just zoom this out so you can see the progress we're making with all of these storms here in North Mississippi. Further up north, we're already returning to those drier conditions, at least for now, and dealing with these stormy conditions further on south and southeastern portion of our coverage area. Thankfully, only dealing with those severe thunderstorm warnings. I think is that one or two separate ones, at least for Lowndes and into Lamar County. So we're dealing with those. Those are set to expire at around 15. So hopefully we can continue to see that trend continue into the evening, where we're not really seeing these get extended much further. These storms are not very long lived. They kind of build up its intensity and just kind of dump it all out already. We're just not dealing with it for too long. So not dealing with anything widespread, but still dealing with quite a few showers, rumbles, disruptive energy out there in the Golden Triangle region as those continues to push further and further southeast as we're getting closer towards the 5 o'clock broadcast hour. And what these storms are really doing is bringing some of those gusty winds, but also the potential for hail. But I have been very pleased to see not many, if any, hail reports get sent in. I know we've talked about maybe penny size hail further up north, kind of right along the Tennessee state line as they entered North Mississippi. But most of the reports have just been very disruptive, very loud, and just a little bit energetic with the amount of lightning that we're talking about. A little bit gusty as well. We've been talking about some of those straight line wind gusts here in the Golden Triangle region. That severe thunderstorm warning, kind of the reason that it is issued, with the possibility of some hail, but it reaching 1 inch in diameter. Very difficult with the setup we're dealing with right now. Now, I will notice if we zoom in a little bit closer, kind of between Winston and Knoxville County, we're getting some of those darker returns here on that purple, just showing that hail maybe more likely of an outcome with this storm. Now, again, it reaching up to 1 inch or greater is going to be very, very difficult for this kind of system that we're dealing with. And again, this is very disorganized. We're not really talking about like an outbreak moving through. It's just some storms and showers, just that summertime season that we just continue to deal with here in North Mississippi. Unfortunately, most of us dealing with them several days throughout the week. So a little bit busy these past few days as we're tracking out these showers and storms. And we can even toss it back to our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor, as he's been looking at things behind the scenes. So we'll talk to him, see what all he has in store for us. Gabe, what are you looking at right now?
Well, basically watching the reports come in, and as of right now, it's been pretty quiet those last few minutes. The last picture we've gotten was 4:36. Now, current time 4:52. So that has kind of died off a bit. And that's also a welcome sight, exactly what we want to see here in the Mississippi Live Weather Center. But power outages, those continue to be a concern. I do want to go on the overall state of Mississippi. Let's get it back to our basic mode here. Oktibbeha County seeing those outages climb, and that was what we were getting there with 4 county. So let me go back here to our 4 county map. Yeah, 404 outages with 172 now southwest of Starkville. This will be working its way, was that closer to Highway 25? Yeah, right along 25 there, just west of the airport. So some of the communities impacted out there. 112 outages along Churchill Circle, and then Oliver Jackson Road. 60 outages being reported there as well. Now the 400 outages, those are along Highway 82, closer to Oktibbeha County Lake. I actually caught my first Mississippi fish at Oktibbeha County Lake, fun fact. And that's going to be over just outside of Highway 82, with more of those outages along 389 on the northern side of Oktibbeha County. Looking back towards Macon, we have sporadic outages starting to amount to there in the Brooksville community, and then extending closer to the Macon Municipal Airport. That's a result of some lightning. Whenever we see this more here and there, just spotty in nature, that's telling you more that it's lightning. But if we're looking more at the wind, well, the wind is where we get the bulk of the outages, being about 400 total there right along the Starkville area. Now, I do want to look at other outage reports like we talked about Pontotoc, no outages to report. So, hey, we'll clear them off the map. That's always what I love to do. And looking towards Northeast Mississippi Electric Power Association, This has been an outage that's been in effect since 2/13 when storms were just starting to fire off. Now, I'm curious if there's something that's outside of weather-related issues that's causing these outages to take place. Tom Bigby, several outages to report as well. And as we look, we're getting reports with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers of outages being reported down there in Starkville, so verifying there. And continuing to look at the Entergy area, more of those outages out towards Webster County. This just outside of the Tom Nolan community, but not a ton, only about 2 outages to report. And Natchez Trace EPA seeing a few outages result there in Yalobusha County, 62 outages to report, and a total of 89 between Chickasaw, Webster, Calhoun, and even towards Yalobusha and Grenada County. Now, I do want to get back on our poweroutage.us because we do see that some of those outages start to amount to about 135 in Monroe County. Lowndes County not getting a ton. Again, that would be with 4 county, and we saw that just a moment ago. So let's go back to the statewide view. And I want to make sure I'm not missing anything down there along Highway 14. But I do see that there's some updates coming out of Jackson with some of those severe thunderstorm warnings. Caleb, I know that you have a look at our Mama Justice Doppler radar for that potential. Just continue to track out some of these storms.
Yeah. No.
And it looks like we're going to come to me and then go.
I think we're going to go back. I think somebody else was clicking those buttons. There we go.
Me clicking those buttons. I just wanted to pop in and say just really quickly, we've had lots of videos come in and lots of photos coming in from you guys. Of course, you can always send those in using the Mississippi Live app. And just really quickly, Matt is working on his microphone so he can get ready for the upcoming 5 o'clock show. If you would, please, if you would go to the wall and kind of track out some of these storms, I think that would really help us out and his microphone situation. So if you and Caleb could kind of switch places for us, we'll greatly appreciate it. Just a little bit of, ring around the rosies here. It's not a big deal. But they are tracking those storms back at the Mississippi Live.
That's the behind-the-scenes magic that folks may not see here behind the scenes. So what we're looking at is that severe thunderstorm warning now extending into our 5 o'clock show there in Noxubee County up until 5:30. So I told you guys that we would be live throughout the afternoon and evening. Well, exactly what we were talking about last night, verifying through our forecast today. We're still going to stay on our Monroe County radar site because it's the closest radar site that we have into this storm, but the story remains the same. As we carry this through Monroe County, Lowndes and Noxubee County, the gusty winds continue to tell the story through Cliftonville, up towards Brooksville a little bit ago, and then down there towards Aubrey, seeing some of those gustier winds as well. Now, I do want to go back over the last 30 minutes to see, when this was issued, just where those winds were sitting at. So we're not getting a great return. Even on that next scan towards the Ravine community, it's not going to be as prominent. So at least there is that positive continuing into our 5 o'clock hours. So we're going to continue to track this out, but I'm not as impressed as what we were dealing with up towards the Lowndes County area, comparatively speaking, Matt. But, it doesn't take much for these storms to not only develop, but strengthen and potentially become impactful through the evening. Mike's still not. I still do not hear you. Okay. Take it away. Okay, well, I will bring it up full screen for myself to kind of talk about. Okay,
Keep it there while he keeps checking audio.
okay.
Yeah.
So as we track this out, thank you, Caleb. Man who knows sign language. There we go. So as we continue through our evening, of course, we're almost to that 5 o'clock hour where our show will start. But our Mama Justice Doppler radar telling us about this severe thunderstorm warning in Noxubee County and as well as up there towards Lowndes County. Now, I'm not seeing any immediate concern there for Lowndes County, at least not towards the Plum Grove area and out there towards Highway 45. Where we're getting those gustier winds are towards the Cary Estates. But as this moves south of Columbus, some additional development is definitely possible, and that's what we're going to carry through east of 45 as these keep that southeast direction. So you can see that as these develop through the northern part of Lowndes County through Caledonia and now continuing to develop through the rest of the county. We'll trim that as necessary there with the National Weather Service, but we're really watching east of 45 for folks there in Lowndes County and continuing more towards Lamar and Pickens County here momentarily. But these storms continue to just intensify in coverage and make for a pretty soggy evening, all things considered, across North Mississippi. So continuing this through the area, we're going to track this one out through Columbus. And let me stop the scan here and go on the overall track there. And we're tracking this storm in particular that has produced some of those gustier winds. And as we take it at about, we'll take it 24 miles an hour. You see Ethelsville 503, Macedonia 505, towards the Trinity area 509, Melrose 519, Forreston 520, Togo 524, Reform 533, off towards Carrollton 538, Bell 543, and Pickensville by 543 as well. Now, National Weather Service in Birmingham has not elected to continue a warning into Pickens County. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities, but our reports remain pretty minimal there in Lowndes County. So that is something that they're monitoring as well. So send in your reports, because National Weather Service does appreciate it for how they issue those warnings moving forward. As for any development back towards Highway 14 area, I'm not seeing anything that is overly impressive on the wind signatures. Even this severe thunderstorm warning there towards northeastern Noxubee County, I'm not overly impressed with. Let's take a look at our Macon camera looking towards the north and east. And as we take a look there, we'll see some of the heavier downpours in the distance. Did I click it? Let's go back and make sure that's clicked. There we go. So as we're looking towards the north and east, you can see the heavy downpours, the camera kind of shaking there. The winds at the reporting station not exactly telling the story for how those winds are actually going with this storm. So we're still probably getting about 20 to 30 mile an hour gusts on there on our Fastnet camera in Macon. So we will continue to watch this. So Matt, just checking in. I know it's 5 o'clock. Thumbs up, thumbs down? Okay. So yes, looking towards the northeast, there's that heavier downpour. And as we clear this off here for a moment, and we'll jump back to our Macon camera in just a moment, I do want to continue to keep eyes on this as we move through the rest of our evening. And of course, keeping eyes behind the scenes. I don't want to miss out on our Lamar County storm. I'm not overly impressed by it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that has shifted south. So if you're in Hitogi, Star, Millport, I'm not really worried about anything for you. My immediate concern would still be drawn towards Lowndes County, where the strongest winds are being detected. And our True Shield Roofing hail swath, it's trying to get a few stones mixing in there. We've gotten a few reports of some small hail, but not overly large on the size of those hailstones. That's why we set a very limited hail threat for our Wednesday. But wind still the primary concern. And with the bulk of activity, now, it's a few storms are not possible to get on the stronger side, but with this much going on, that is limiting those severe storms, at least the potential for them, because there's so much activity and there's only so many pieces of pie that can be eaten before the pie's gone. And that's what we're dealing with here, is a lot of storms wanting some action and not going to be able to get it because there's just not that much energy to go around. So yes, we do have this severe thunderstorm warning here, still taking advantage of that untapped energy, but with more of those storms firing off, I think that limits our severe weather potential. I do see these storms back towards Webster County and towards Montgomery County, but even then, I'm not overly impressed by it. Let me check wind mode. Yeah, I guess the wind getting a little bit gusty there towards Winona. This would be looking out of our Monroe County site. This still should be the closest one, but let me put this on a loop here. I believe this is developing right along that boundary back on the far southwest side. Yeah, look, it was nothing just a few minutes ago, now getting to be a little bit more prominent there. So this is an area that still has some untapped energy that this is able to feed off of. So the further west you go, I mean, west of 55, what have we seen today? Not a lot. And this is the issue overnight, is the fact that some of these storms can backbuild along that boundary, but also we have additional storms developing in Arkansas that will try to make its way towards the south and east into parts of the Delta, parts of northwest Mississippi. Yes, we got you.
Okay, but am I too loud? That's the question.
I don't think so. I guess you can ask folks in the chat.
It's not his broadcast voice, so I feel like he's...
So it's...
It is
so we're good?
It's
okay.
loud.
That's
Overmodulated.
okay. That's what I was trying to figure out. Am I still overmodulated?
Not as bad.
Leonard Girl? Okay. Okay, that's going to be good enough. We're going to get the 5 o'clock started. Give me a second here. We'll get 5 o'clock started.
Caleb, if you
and we'll
can
go from
push.
there.
I have it ready.
Just
I have been going to Tupelo Smiles my whole life. When I was a kid, I was unhappy about some uneven coloring on my teeth after getting my braces off, which at the time there really wasn't a fix. I was recently made aware of a solution that would totally fix it, which is exactly what we did. They not only heard my concerns, but they never stopped looking to solve my problem, and that's why I love Tupelo Smiles.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 5.
Okay, we'll get my microphone fixed here in a second. I apologize for that. Chief Meteorologist Matt Lopon here alongside our meteorologist Gabe Maynor. When I toss over to Gabe here in a second, as well as Caleb and Emily, we've been assessing some storms producing sporadic damage. The big headline is that we have not had a lot of significant damage. That is unless you have something that you haven't shared with us. The question I'll ask Gabe as we pull him up here in just a second is this. Number one, do my lips match my voice, which was the issue, but all of the junk we're dealing with right now is trying.
Yeah, they match, but it is a little bit overmodulated, and now it's not.
He's now muted.
You're muted. Okay. Well, as we talk about that forecast, as we start the 5 o'clock broadcast, of course, what we're looking at is going to be the first 12, 85 degrees at 6, 78 by 9, 75 by midnight. But of course, the story is not the temperatures tonight. The story remains the storms. So as we bring it to our Mom Adjusted Doppler radar, looking at those latest scans, you can see how those warnings continue into northern Lowndes County, southern Lamar County, and really putting it on that latest scan there. This goes all the way into the northeast Noxubee County area. So southern Lamar County now being canceled out, something we talked about as we wrapped up and went into the 5 o'clock hour. But we are watching this storm specifically out here towards southern Lowndes County with those gustier winds. This moving right along Highway 69 and Highway 82. So I know some folks traveling maybe over to Tuscaloosa or traveling over to Alabama in its entirety. Drive with caution. We do not want to be caught in this storm, and we've seen it time and time again across Highway 6 in Monroe County and with some high-profile vehicles in Monroe County of some vehicles being knocked off the road. So be monitoring that and, of course, be mindful of it and do not get out on the roadways if you do not have to. Now, one thing before I go too far into the storm that I want to talk about is out here towards Webster and Montgomery County. One of the things I was talking with our meteorologist Caleb Edelblut about is the potential at maybe a microburst possibility. So a little bit earlier on, you can see how this has climbed in storm tops. Let me do it about a 5-minute increment there. You can see how it wasn't really much of anything just about 20 minutes ago. Now getting upwards of about 50,000 feet in those storm heights. So these are all climbing. And one thing that we see with a microburst is they climb and then they fall. Of course, as you get those heights as tall as they get, once they fall, that puts out a strong output of wind. And a little bit earlier on, not too long ago, we were seeing some of those stronger gusts. Yes, right there towards Kilmichael, where you're getting those brighter greens. That's going to be that area of perhaps some strong winds being briefly put out by this storm. So National Weather Service not putting any tag on this necessarily, but I do think that we could be talking about some minimal wind potential as well as some hail potential there. Our True Shield Roofing hail swath indicating that as well. Getting into the darker purples, we're not fully into the probable category, but we are not far away from it either. Putting this into our 3D mode, I think that's worthwhile on this storm in particular. And let's watch this over the last couple of scans and see how those storm tops have trended, which I can go ahead and tell you they've climbed. I mean, started out as practically nothing. Now that latest scan at 507, starting to get more vertical development to it. So that is still strengthening, at least with what I'm seeing there. One thing that I will do is cut into this storm. So bear with me behind the scenes. Going to cut into that. And we're going to look at the peak of that hail core. Whenever you get those purples and whites and blacks, that's where you're talking about some large hail aloft, Matt. This isn't a severe thunderstorm warning, but I think this could be potentially impactful over those next few minutes.
That's as significant as any of them that we've had so far today, I would say, as far as the hail potential is concerned. By the way, is it overmodulated now?
It sounds good to me.
Okay. Look at that. We did it. Yeah, I would say that that's as intense as any kind of hail return that we've kind of seen out of these thunderstorms today. So I think it's not unreasonable I think the main reason why there's not a warning in place for this is just because there have been a couple of warnings that have not necessarily had a whole lot of verification with them. So not impossible that maybe that gets to the point where it tries to produce something more significant or prompts a warning at some point here in the future as well. Now it's loud. Okay. So, but
Yeah, 2 bucks
it was fine here.
Yes.
This is still fine.
Yes.
Leonard, this is good. Tell me if the next one's good. Golly, y'all, I'm sorry. Okay, is this good?
Well, you have to talk.
Well, I'm talking now. Okay, is this good?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, maybe their earpieces are just high. Or maybe they're just used to me being softer. Okay, right now, we're still good. I'm looking for thumbs up. Emily says yes. Gabe says yes. Caleb says he's not sure. Okay, good enough. We'll count it as good for now. Golly, I'm sorry, y'all. Let's go back over here to the Virtual Weather Center and let's kind of go into the show here for a brief moment, kind of line up what things look like and kind of where we're going from here for a moment. Again, hour-by-hour forecast has us with still some thunderstorms now and additional thunderstorms still possible as we go later on into this evening and tonight. This front, part of what is helping to kind of align and produce these storms. By the way, this is not the way fronts move. This should be a stationary front on here. The fact it's sagging south tells you that the colder air, at least in this moment, is winning. The issue is that upstream, back behind it, we have additional thunderstorms. No guarantees that this all kind of makes it in here, and part of the reason for that is because of the moisture values. What we've had happen so far today, what has kind of led us to this point here, is that moisture values, see if it's going to play along. Y'all, there we go. Dew point. Man, my mouse, I don't know, I need a reboot here pretty badly, apparently. Anyway, the moisture values have been more significant south of this front where the storms are just kind of feeding southward into that. There's less humid air up here. That eventually builds in. That eventually is a fairly significant improvement for versus where we have been so far. Now, storms will continue over the next couple of hours to move southeast, and the question then becomes, what about the next batch? Notice not just storms trying to move in from Arkansas, but we do potentially kind of redevelop some thunderstorms this evening. The folks at Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, choosing to not go ahead and put out a watch just because only sporadic reports of wind damage possible out of this. Nonetheless, it's still possible that we could see some sporadic damage reports that do come even later into tonight. But I think as this front moves in, our rain chances, our severe weather chances should diminish as we go into tomorrow. And that's one of the things, again, we'll be looking at in more detail coming up here in a couple minutes. So hour-by-hour forecast has us at about 73 at 6 a.m., 78 by 9, 88 by noon, 92s look toward afternoon, and those north winds bringing in less humid air and a significant improvement coming associated with that. Now, coming up here in a couple minutes, again, we're right back to Mama Justice Doppler. We're tracking where these storms are. We do potentially have some reports of damage reported from Cindy Lawrence there in Lowndes County. 4 trees down on Cal Vernon Road, which would be, again, kind of on the northeast portion of the county there. Main Street at 9th Avenue, 7th Street at 4th Avenue, and 200 Curtis Road. Reports, again, of trees down in and around Lowndes County because of the damage and wind that has gone through there. You still remain under a severe thunderstorm warning. Let's actually go back over to that before we head over to news here in a moment, just to give an update now that we've kind of had that information. And again, one thing we want to emphasize, this is not as impressive as it was 20-25 minutes ago. Still, where you see the reds here, that's where we could still have some damaging wind progressing there. Notice Pickens County, the folks at the Weather Service Birmingham have left that off, but the Lowndes County still progressing southward. So occasional 50 to 60 mile per hour winds possible, maybe not quite as impressive as it was a little bit ago. We'll get you a storm track as we head to break here, and these storms in the leading edge right there where that red is where those are the strongest. About 25 miles per hour. Again, getting that to Forston. We're looking at for you pretty much now. Pine Grove area down toward Lowndes and Noxubee County. We're looking at that by 5:15 there. Eventually getting closer to McShann at 5:17 in Pickens County. Bigby Valley there in Noxubee County about 5:23. As the worst of this probably stays a little bit north of the Macon area. You're watching Mississippi Live at 5. We'll be right back after this.
People are like, Bulldog Burger Company. Great burgers. Okay, stop right there. Yes, they make the best burger you ever had. Never smashed, but that's not all. Look at this chicken BLT salad. Just look at it. And a chicken sandwich? No. Come in here. Get closer. It's the chicken sandwich. Where are you taking that? Come back! Oh, that's good.
Growing up, Gabe was naturally curious. When he began to discover weather, Gabe just didn't want to know what was happening, but he wanted to know why it was happening. Gabe became fascinated with tornadoes, and it impacted his life. He wanted to pursue a career in meteorology. Even though Gabe grew up in Alabama, Mississippi has now become his home and his family. And one thing about Gabe is he keeps his family safe.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here on Mississippi Live. I'm Emily Leonard. Monroe County is taking a really hard look at its ambulance service. This comes after an incident in Smithville that raised concerns about response times and care from MedStat. At this August meeting, Smithville Fire Chief Scott Morgan said that he saw a lack of professionalism and missing equipment on scene. Supervisors approved a new ambulance advisory committee that's made up of fire chiefs, 911 officials, and a sheriff's office representative. County Fire Coordinator Evan Adams says the biggest complaint's simple: not enough ambulances available when they are needed. Officials want the new contract with MedStat to include a 4th ambulance for the county and clearer rules for calling in a medical helicopter. The board's president, Ribble West, says the goal is simple: fix what is broken. Also, the Monroe County supervisors discussing a $5.4 million plan to repair Aberdeen's failing port dock wall with a state grant application that is due very soon. The county is applying for a $500,000 state grant that would require a dollar-for-dollar match. That application is due this week. Officials say the repair could open the door to major economic development. A new dock wall would last more than 50 years. You can read both of these stories right now in the Monroe Journal. Well, it is game on. The Tupelo Family Feud returning Thursday night to the Cotton Mill. It is the 4th year for this fundraiser supporting the Good Samaritan Health Services Anton Tannehill Clinic. Executive Director Hannah Meharry says the event provides about a third of the nonprofit's annual budget, funding free care for uninsured and unemployed residents. The night will kick off with a dinner at 6 p.m. and then the fun gets rolling. This year's game rounds longer this time with new sound and new screens to match. They have cranked everything up a notch. Tickets are $125. They're almost sold out. You can find tickets and more information at GoodSamaritanTupelo.org, or go ahead and pause this video and scan that QR code there on your screen to get your tickets. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us here on Mississippi Live. I'm Emily Leonard. Have a great night.
There are moments in life when we don't act based on who someone loves, where they're from, or what they believe, because the things that make us different will never change. What makes us human.
Reserve your St. Jude Dream Home giveaway ticket by August 28th, and you'll be eligible to win the house and the bonus prize, a 2026 Polaris Ranger, courtesy of Dream Day Foundation. Visit dreamhome.org or call to reserve your ticket today.
As a bankruptcy firm, Mitchell, Cunningham & Bowling realizes many people are worried about their finances. We're here to guide you through the next steps to restart your life with easy video appointments. New clients don't have to leave home to get information about becoming debt-free. Also, convenient in-office appointments are available at the low cost of $340 upfront for a Chapter 13. You can be on your way to being debt-free. Contact Mitchell, Cunningham & Bowling today or visit our website at mcdebtfree.com. We are here to help you. Right now, from the Mississippi Live Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Laubhahn.
Tupelo playing storms earlier, but looking good now. You're watching Mississippi Live here at 6. Same thing, Mitchell Cunningham Bowling camera in Tupelo, and our Farmers and Merchants Bank up in Iuka, which was one of the spots where we had lots of storms earlier. Northeast part of the state, not a lot of reports coming from there as far as damage is concerned. Now, a different story down in Lowndes County. We'll go down to our Caledonia camera, not bouncing around as much, still have power there, thankfully, and we'll check on the power situation with our Caleb Edelblut here in a few minutes, and we'll also discuss again some of the reports that you guys have sent in. But before we go there, I want to bring in our Emily Leonard. Again, Emily has talked to some folks down in Lowndes County about some of the damage going on there.
Right. I reached out to Lowndes County Emergency Management Director Cindy Lawrence, who mentioned her just a few minutes ago, just to kind of get an update on what they're seeing down there. And she says, as of right now, they've got 3 trees down. I think that number has actually been updated since I spoke to her. Matt, I think you had reports from her of 4 trees, mainly in the northeast portion of the county. So she said she's got trees down. I also reached out to Clay County. Tori Williams down in Clay County reached out, and right now they have a couple trees down as well. They're in Clay County, and a few power outages as well. So obviously the wind, the power outages, and trees down seems to be really what most people are dealing with. And it seems like that's what we've had this last couple of rounds of storms. But I'll keep checking with them, see if we get any more updates. But that is what I've got as of right now.
Okay, I appreciate that. Our Emily Leonard again with reports there of some of the storms that damage, unfortunately, that have gone through the Golden Triangle area. Outside in Macon right now, we're underneath one of those storms, still technically a severe thunderstorm warning, though you'll notice here in effect until 5:30 p.m. Current time is about 5:20, and those storms continuing to kind of move southward. We have not had a lot of wind damage reports in the last 15-20 minutes out of that storm. That track continuing to take the heaviest portion of that. Again, Melrose, we show 521 there, down toward around Archer by 524. Carrollton 536, moving toward Beavertown there at 542. McMullen by about 550, and eventually Aliceville by about 555. Yeah, we have had some reports of wind damage, as Emily mentioned, in Lowndes County, back up again toward the city of Columbus, and really all along Military Road in Caledonia, where a lot of those reports, official reports, have come in at this point here. That does not mean that outside of where we've had official reports, we haven't had some issues. Of course, we've also had a report of some wind knocking down some trees there in Houston, or 4 miles south of Houston, associated with the storms there. One of another number of spots we're watching power outage situation as it's ongoing right now. Our Caleb Bittleblut in our downtown Tupelo studios again looking at that. Caleb?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're still seeing power outages continue to climb in the Golden Triangle region. Union's still pretty noticeable as well, seeing that blue shade up there. They're coming in at around 311 customers out, which has decreased from the last report we gave you guys. So that continues to be a positive. If we were to take a look at that, we're still seeing that significant amount of outages out there between Lafayette and Union County, still coming in around 604. But that other outage just south of Hickory Flat, that included around 60 customers, you guys have been back online. So that is very good to see. Take a look out here on our Tom Bigby EPA, still seeing those outages reported within these teal areas. We're talking about 13 on the one to your left, that bigger area 32, and this yellow coming in at 68. But I will say one of the most noticeable areas that we're continuing to see those outages climb is down in the Golden Triangle region with our 4-county EPA, just seeing these numbers just continue to spread all across Oktibbeha, Clay, Noxubee, Lowndes County, as those just continue to come in. And even taking a look at East Mississippi, if this will load and refresh, we're talking about 629 here within Winston County and just outside of Louisville. So unfortunately, those storms continue to be very prominent down south in our coverage area. Those outages continue to climb as well, Matt.
They do, and will unfortunately continue to go up a bit more. Appreciate that. Gabe will talk with us about some of the damage pictures you guys have sent in here in a minute. Ackerman, our FastNet camera there, showing up with, again, the clouds, the showers, the storms kind of moving in a little closer. No official warnings, thankfully, out there in Choctaw County. But I'm looking just a little bit north into Webster County. You know, Gabe was looking at this a few minutes ago as well. A storm that on our True Shield roofing hail threat has kicked out a little bit, but it's not all the way up there into the kind of the blackish purple colors. One of the signs that, again, it has not gone all the way to true severe hail in all likelihood there. And even just kind of looking at the wind, does not look as impressive on that. We'll give this a loop here over the last hour. That one kind of keep popping up. If you look closely, there's a little area of rain-cooled air right there, that outflow boundary that's kind of helping to spark these. So that means back toward Grenada and Deck Hill, these could continue to kind of back build over the next couple of hours in this same zone here, as well as that kind of works its way back toward the west. Not a lot of movement, though, on the specific storm. It's largely just staying in place where it is. We are getting some movement on the leading edge of these storms from Brooksville back toward around Louisville. Bring it to the current time here. Checking again our hail swath on here. Not much in the way of hail out of that batch of storms. And the wind is a little more spotty. I think there could still be some spots in there where we do get occasional wind damage. I'm going to track not necessarily the true leading edge, but instead kind of the most concentrated area here where we might have some gusty winds. And there's kind of the track on that as well. By the way, new reports again of some of that wind damage coming in and around the Columbus area from that storm. So Triplets Corner, that was, again, when I mentioned the wind damage, it's this storm here. We're tracking this one that has not had as many reports. Nanawaya, 606 for you. Sugarlock, about 611. We're looking at Macon, about 543, as that storm's generally kind of moving in your direction. But again, heavy rainfall, gusty winds, the main factor out of all these storms. And then the question becomes, can they move out of Arkansas? There are severe thunderstorms back that way. They've done a better job of producing hail versus what we've had back here in Mississippi. Looking at Futurecast into this evening. The batch of storms we have now continues to slide southeast and away, and then our attention turns back to the north and west. But before it does, still at 6:30 or so, this is that kind of grouping of strong to severe thunderstorms we have down there, still Noxubee County, very near our front, kind of working south and east and out of here. So that's that redevelopment. It shows that Louisville, I think it could be farther north toward the Grenada and Winona area, still at 7:30 or so. And there it is, captured now in this latest version of Futurecast. So some redevelopment possible as we continue to watch Arkansas for a source zone for that are presently stronger. Now, I do think this might be overdone a little bit at 9 p.m., but it is a sign, and I also think it might need to be a little farther west than where we have it. But in either case, we're still going to have some spotty storms still trying to pop up by around 10 p.m., not really up here in the northeast part of the state where we've kind of been pretty worked over. So these storms out here toward Dumas, Arkansas, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, not super impressive on this. And then again, additional storms trying to develop over toward early tomorrow morning. So that's where I think the layered effect on this could have an impact on trying to produce some sporadic issues with some damaging wind, and I think heavy rainfall as well. As we widen this out just a little bit more, that front is going to be our story as it brings us less humid air. It's just taking some time to fully get into and through here. Low 70s out there for early Thursday morning for those low temperatures. Your school day forecast, we're up 20% on that rain coverage early, 10% in the afternoon. We'll still have some storms trying to pop up. Low 90s though, a sign that we are starting to see some level of improvement with this. So a few spotty storms still 9 to 10 o'clock in the morning for tomorrow, but most of the activity down here, Forest, Jackson, I-20 southward. As we talked about last night, the dry air is the story trying to push in, but we do get some redevelopment 2 to 3 o'clock. And as we mentioned specifically related to our strike model, which was, I think, slower and effectively so, a few of these storms still could get going close to this boundary as we head toward tomorrow afternoon to possibly early evening. It does have 1 or 2 that are a little heavy. So we'll see on that. Mid-90s out there for highs. Heat indices should be somewhere around 100, but at least they're not over 105, so we're not the heat advisory sort of levels with this. Going toward your Thursday night, couple spotty showers. Obviously nothing like what we have out there for this evening. The severe weather threat, not something we're particularly impressed with. And then we're on the dry side of the front. Couple isolated storms still here. Dry by not necessarily free of rainfall, but dry from less humid. And behind this, a lot drier air that will continue to try to push this front maybe a little bit farther south than where it is there. That's the only way we're going to get relief is if we can get on the north side a little bit more. Low 70s out there for lows early Friday morning. Fridays we head toward midday. Not much in the way of shower activity. Still a couple rogue sprinkles out there. Water Valley back towards Shelby. A few more kind of popping up here. 1:30, 2 o'clock on our strike model, which is a little more aggressive. So maybe some spotty storms there Friday afternoon as well. We're hoping to get this completely clear in time for our Mississippi Live Game of the Week, presented by Casey Lott. But at this time, it remains still a bit of a question if we can get it completely to clear. Low 90s to maybe mid 90s on Friday afternoon, and the heat index somewhere in the middle 90s. But what do you not see on this map? Not a single location over 100 for that heat index at 3 p.m. Friday. Oh, no, I missed it. Vernon. We're almost there. That's my goal. Anyway, low 90s out there for low spots, heat indices by Friday afternoon. 7-day forecast, mainly dry Friday, as well as looking into this weekend. Mid 90s on the way by Saturday afternoon, upper 60s for lows early Saturday morning. And the stickiness comes back, obviously, first of next week. I mean, it's still, August going into September, so it can't completely escape it, right? But at least a few steps in the correct direction. By the way, of course, you can always get that 7-day forecast in the Mississippi Live app. I'm going to bring in our Emily Leonard here. We're looking toward a Mississippi Live News coming up at 6, and then we're going to get back over to Mama Justice Doppler radar here in just a moment. You look towards 6. Any additional reports you've got from emergency managers, any people like that as well?
Well, I'm glad you asked because, yes, Cindy Lawrence did message me just moments ago. She said power outage Lake Lowndes Road in New Hope. So folks out on Lake Lowndes Road in New Hope also experiencing power outages, lots of power outages kind of all over the place, kind of widespread here and there because of these storms. Trees down also there and in Clay County. I've reached out to Noxubee County, Oktibbeha County, just reaching out to all of these EMA directors and just seeing what is going on in their area for right now. But speaking of the news and what is happening in your area, if I can get back to my notes, thankfully, all of this rain has done one really good thing, and that is for our ag producers. My dad was a sorghum researcher his whole life. My heart goes out to anybody who is an ag producer, who farms. It is hard work, but it seems like it's going to pay off for 3 specific crops this year. So we'll talk about that coming up at 6.
Okay, looking forward to that in Mississippi Live at 6. And we'll go back over here to Mama Justice Doppler radar. I appreciate that, Emily. And here in a moment, you're going to see this pop off of our map here. The folks there at the National Weather Service in Jackson are not going to extend the severe thunderstorm warning for Noxubee County, so that's supposed to expire at 5:30. It lingers on there a couple seconds longer before it pops on off, so that'll pop off our map here in just a moment. And with that, we have no other additional severe thunderstorm warnings out there, and I think we'll go ahead and suspend the coverage here as well. I'm going to check our chat, and then we're going to look at Gabe, we're going to save the pictures that you've got and doing kind of an overview on the pictures people have sent in. I think we'll do that at 6 o'clock. We'll just we'll take a breather here between 5 and 6 o'clock for that as well. So again, looking here at your reports, get some folks asking about Amory. I can tell you in Amory, you're probably done for the night there as well. Columbus, folks asking about that. Again, the worst is through Columbus. Unfortunately, we did have some wind damage there a little bit earlier as well. Move my mic further down my tie. No, my issue with that was I had to switch the way my mic was wired up. That took me a minute here to get that. I typically run it through the computer. I had to run it directly through the camera because there was an audio delay, so I was having a sync issue there. And apparently I'm blurry at the moment. So I've got something else to fix by 6 o'clock. Oh, man. Love doing some tinkering. Anyway, so hail in Louisville and power out in New Hope. Again, we did have that report of power out in New Hope. I do want to know there, Jeremiah, Maggie, McNee, how large that hail was. And let's take a look at that here because that is a little bit surprising that produced some hail there. Let's look 3D on it. Maybe there's something more kind of hanging up there aloft than what met the eye initially. Let's see there. That should pretty much have it. There we go. Okay. So I don't have much showing up there on the 3D mode on the current scan, but that might have meant there might have still been something a couple minutes ago. I don't really see a whole lot on that. Let me do that. Yeah, I mean, maybe some pea-sized hail. That's interesting, though, because that does not look nearly as impressive as some other spots have. So the fact that that's producing even any hail at all is a fairly impressive return. So, okay, interesting. You can see, comparatively speaking, if you went back out here towards, say, Pickens County, those storms are in Noxubee County a bit stronger, more of that hail showing up aloft with those thunderstorms there. So, yeah, those are, for the most part, the Carrollton probably where they're a little bit heavier. So let's track that kind of batch, and then we'll sort of wrap things up here for our 5 o'clock broadcast. So again, Beavertown, we're looking at about 533 for you. And maybe the blurriness is just on my return feed. Emily, is my shot here clean on yours, or is it just my return feed that was coming up blurry? Clean is a thumbs up, blurry is a thumbs down. Okay, we're thumbs up. Okay, so yeah, you can see there again on our track some of the times again, but mostly again this below severe limits, thankfully. Our next live broadcast coming up at 6 o'clock. We'll get a few things scrambled up here and good to go. Interesting. Is the shot okay? Because what I'm looking at behind the scenes is a little doubled up. That's fun. Oh well. Let's advance it one more time.
At Room to Room, our Labor Day sale is the real deal.
Half off prices plus an extra 10% off furniture, motion, and mattresses. Snag 20% off accessories plus 48 months special financing. Style your space and save big.
Only at Room to Room.
For years, it's been the same formula. If it bleeds, it leads. You deserve better. We are Mississippi Live. We're focused on the stories that matter to you, to your community, to your family, because local matters. We are Mississippi Live.
Oh man, hit the wrong button. We're going to do this at some point here. We'll see you in a minute.